reopen.
Which it was before.
Right, obviously, but both sides would need a way to claim that they're actually controlling it. Or the U.S. would need to say, no one's controlling the strait, it's open, and Iran would need to say, actually, we are controlling it, which they, de facto are, because they are the ones who could shut it down. Then the traffic would get moving through there. And I've tried to figure out what's happening to the people who are on the ships trying to get out of the strait. They're just sitting there. Do they run out of food? What's going on?
I've been thinking about that a lot too. Just what's the vibe there? Someday there's going to be some sort of movie made about this point in time set on an oil tanker, and the crew is just every day. What is this? I mean, what a fucking terrible situation for everybody. The other thing I wanted to bring up about Iran was that they regained at least limited internet access, and we're starting to see more snippets of what the reality of life is like there for them, and it's horrendous. Economically, I mean, the destruction that's happened, their inability, the cost of just basic goods through the roof. Also seeing videos shared for the first time that I hadn't seen, POV videos of just the destruction and the bombings happening in the first month or two of this, and it's just horrific. We spend so much time talking about the fucking strait and forget about what has happened to the population there.
We really are all very similar, because so much of what the chatter has been on social media now that the restrictions have started to lift is how expensive food is over there. The Guardian says 300% increase in vegetable oil, 190% increase in chicken, 170% for rice. So, we think our food prices are bad. They've been going through a lot over there, and everyone's upset with their government because the food's too damn expensive. That seems to be a very consistent through line.
And it won't be getting less expensive for a very long time, is another thing to keep in mind. And just, we talked about this as this conflict started, that yes, we will feel this, but not in the same way or as extensively as other places. And again, it's just so easy to forget as time drags on the human cost and the real effects on people's lives, even outside of what we're experiencing here. So, yeah.
I'm sure over there they're calling it a Democrat hoax as well.
Probably. Just waiting for their savior, Papa Trump, to come rescue them.
Yeah, it's just the kind of thing that's well, they said that, and then it's never the thing that they say, and so we just have to every single day just be update, no deal. But even though they say, probably not, but maybe, but probably not.
This ceasefire, such as it is, which has not ceased firing.
It's not one, yeah.
It's not one, but especially in Lebanon, Israel continues its expansionist goals, has ordered the inhabitants of Nabata, I hope I pronounced that properly, to leave. This is about 100,000 people. Just people all over Lebanon just being displaced. More deaths every day.
Israel's go-to, if they're we're losing control over the ability to keep Trump engaged in this war, well, let's just batter Lebanon as much as we can before we're maybe forced to stop.
But even then, Netanyahu said, we're not going to stop.
We're not.
Yeah, they'll do their deal, but we're not a part of that, is basically what he said. I directed his military to take over 70% of Gaza earlier today. It's just going to continue, and we'll have our little deal that's not a deal over here, and the destruction will continue.
Again, underscoring, not a ceasefire at all. So, we'll see. It just does not, again, this does not suggest to me that we're close to a deal, but hey, maybe we are finally.
Maybe Scott Jennings is right.
Maybe Scott Jennings is
He's got his sources placed, all of his friends.
Yeah, all of his sources' fingers are in his fucking face.
We should talk
about the real news.
Yeah, the real news, the huge scandal of the Democrats lately who have,
so dumb,
the party of civility here. So Stephen Miller wanted to go at James Tallarico, the Texas Senate candidate for the Democrats, who, maybe has a chance now that Ken Paxton's the other guy. And quote tweeted a Democrat post, fired up, ready to go. It's time to take back Texas. He wrote the very cordial and not at all vitriolic, the Democrats made history in Texas by nominating their first transgender Senate candidate. I guess their attack line is that he's a little fancy boy or something.
That is all it is. It's all they have. He's a fancy vegan boy.
Is it because he's like boyish looking
It's
and
that.
has like a neatness to like?
Well, and
Yes.
he spoke out about gender and
He's talked about trans kids. He's talked
Yeah.
about how God is non-binary and all this sort of other stuff. To them, it's just, oh, look at this young little boy, is what they're saying. There's a Megyn Kelly clip, we don't need to watch it, but she's like, and he comes out here, and he's just this, like, he looks like this, like, small little child, and then you hear his voice, and it's like, that voice is too deep for that small child. And it's just like, who cares? What are you talking about? What? Who cares? Shut up, Megan.
I thought you joined the resistance, Megan.
So the real incivility came after Stephen Miller's attack, when the Democrats, like the social media account for the Democrats, replied to Stephen Miller, "Shut up, you ugly fuck." You could decry the loss of civility in our politics. It certainly
Came out of nowhere.
is sad. It's a far cry from when they go low, we go high.
I've never seen anything like it before.
The reaction from the right, the like crybaby, how dare you, from the party of everything. I don't even
Every
go through the
single
list.
thing they've ever said.
Yeah, is laughable. And I don't know if you want to jump in. I can go through some of the reactions from these people.
Yeah, it's pathetic and weird and stupid. We can get to some of the reactions.
There's pearl clutching, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's pearl clutching, and I don't even I do lament the loss of like general decency. I don't like that we're like, fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. No, fuck you, you piece of shit. That's not good. But where did it come from? And if we're all in the gutters, okay, we're all sewer people now. I also just wanted to say, like, oh, you nominated your first transgender senator. Instead of like being like, fuck you, you fucking piece of ugly fuck. So what if we did? So what if James Tallarico is trans? Who gives a fuck? Who cares? He's not. But like,
I understand the "shut up, you ugly fuck." I understand it. That's how we all feel. I agree with the way you phrase that. Like, yeah, I lament that this is where we're at, but also it's the thing I care about the least, especially when taken against all the things we say on a daily basis. I believe it's Katie Miller on Fox News called it violent political rhetoric. Come on.
you're a little baby. You're a little baby.
Yeah.
You're a tiny little baby.
I
What are you talking about?
What are you
Give me
talking about?
a break.
What are you talking about?
I think most people are onto this. I don't think it really works. The people who are paid to do this and who benefit from acting like this are gonna do it. But like most people, are like, what? Violent political rhetoric? What are you talking about?
The reason we're even talking about it today is that it gained so much traction and sucked up so much oxygen in the room that it's so frustrating. It's just so frustrating to do this every fucking time. So Democrats have to hold themselves to a much higher standard, lest the conversation
Always.
be polluted by this bullshit instead of talking about, oh, God damn it, literally anything else. Trump threatening Oman with a bomb, you know?
Also, like, there's an element of it where it's like, fine tweet, great, go for it. Fuck that ugly fuck. You're right. What an evil piece of shit. But then there's also this sort of disconnect with like, oh, a person running the Democratic Twitter account called Steve Miller an ugly fuck. Okay, but what's the party doing to like match that energy? And it would be great to have a little more like oomph behind it other than like, yeah, we made everybody mad by this angry tweet.
Yeah. Right, and
little
like
bit.
there are, a few Democrats and centrist accounts like really criticizing this and saying this isn't who we are and they should take this down and things like that. And I'm sure there will be think pieces and things in like the New York Times or the Atlantic, where like anonymous Democrats were furious, blah blah blah. Like that's all gonna happen, and which is kind of what Katie Miller and all the rest of them want, is to take attention away from the obvious point, which is like, no, your guy is the one calling entire races of people garbage and dumping AI shit on everyone and calling the first black president and first lady of the United States monkeys and calling people piggy and
Quiet
ugly
piggy.
and fat and scum and bitch and terrible person. And making
Evil,
jokes about
Satanist,
violent attacks
like-
on Democrats and celebrating when people you don't like die or are murdered. Come on.
But he's just the president. He's just the president.
And she's not wrong in what she called him. There wasn't a lie.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I understand like this, like, but like if we start, attacking people about their immutable characteristics, then you're attacking everybody who whatever, and it's like, I don't know, they're Hitlers. There's a bunch of they're just a bunch of stupid Hitlers. I don't. They make it really hard to care about that stuff and try to live up to that sort of standard, because they don't. And they never will, and they're going to pretend to be upset, and they're going to pretend that this is violent political rhetoric. Hey, Katie Miller, quiet piggy, shut the fuck up. But then I feel, like, well, I don't want to engage in that behavior because I think he's a disgusting, monstrous man. So I don't want to echo what he's saying and act like he does because I think he sucks. So I understand the tension there, but to make this a story and to be like, oh my gosh, this is not who we are. It is who some of us are. So fuck them. All this stuff comes down to, everyone's like pretending to be mad about this fucking tweet that says the F word and calls Stephen Miller an ugly person, like an ugly human being in his soul, what he is. And meanwhile, they're all like, look at this trans vegan who's just a tiny little baby girl. And it's like, what, like, so you're denigrating everybody, like all these people in all these different ways and using them as insults. So you're insulting so many people by adopting these attacks on this one man who I don't even think is vegan. And it's just like, you only have culture war stuff. You're only like, he doesn't know he couldn't name a linebacker. He wants to be a senator. You get the fuck out of here.
Right, he couldn't name an obscure wide receiver from the 2000s. Like, do you want to know how all those obscure wide receivers in the 2000s are voting, or the people? Like, this idea that all of like anyone who's a sports fan has to be on the right. Yours is the side that like burned all your NFL gear and said you weren't gonna have anything to do with it after kneeling 10 years ago.
You had your own Super Bowl. You pretend during the it's absurd. It's so stupid.
All of this and everybody jumping on the bandwagon to make their comments, take their shots, bash Tallarico. Honestly, I thought Tallarico was really good. I would endorse that.
Yeah, get your Tallafreak on. Get your Tallafreak on. Lean into it.
Wonderful. It's because they're threatening. Because he has a real shot. And that's wild. That alone is so wild to wrap your mind around. So here we go. I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off. He's got an actual shot.
Yeah.
And they know that the success of Paxton in the primary is not representative of the general election. Now people are going to come out of the woodwork to show what they really think of this administration, and they're going to do anything they can. And this bullshit, I guess, plays to the base in Texas, but I don't think that the Trump-endorsed candidate is going to do as well as you think in Texas, even.
Yeah, they're clearly they're scared. They immediately pulled the ripcord. Jesse Waters was like, emergency show. We have to get Benny Johnson on to call Tallarico gay. Okay, Benny, thanks for the news. Breaking news from
Did
Benny
you
Johnson.
see, not that to give her more oxygen, but did you see Ashley St. Clair on Hassan talking about Benny?
Yeah.
Oh.
We don't have to dig in.
I saw that she went. What's the gals? I've had.
She
it.
went on. I've
Yeah.
had it with Jennifer.
It's
was.
all. We all know. It's obvious. Whatever. Benny, just like live your life. Like be yourself.
Ashley, come here to our show.
It's okay, Benny. It's okay.
I'm sure she would, and I just don't know what because what I'm interested in with her is not what people are asking, and I get that because now she's
what?
acting. I want to know what politically do you believe? Did you always
Yeah.
think this was bullshit and you
That's
were
what I wanna
never
ask.
actually MAGA? And was it like a switch that flipped? Are you pretending now because it's just the way
Yeah.
ways
Yeah, and you
are
were
shifting?
scorned, yeah.
But I don't want to insult someone. But I I'm not that interested in it.
I think those are reasonable questions, and it doesn't have to be phrased ultimately insultingly, but
Well, two things. One, yeah, I agree. I think healthy skepticism with stuff like this is valid and necessary. And all the stuff she's saying seems true because it's stuff we already knew. It's all most of the stuff she's saying is like, oh, I already knew that. It's nice to have somebody be like, yeah, behind the scenes it's true, but I already know.
That Benny
Yeah.
Johnson used to
I
be
know
able
Benny-
to take work trips without his wife, and now he.
Yeah, we all know this kind of stuff. I know that.
stuff
Oh,
about it.
there's group chats where they coordinate their messaging, and they all post the same stuff. I know, but it's still funny.
Yeah.
It's really funny that she went on Hassan and was clearly really flirting heavily with him,
Oh,
and
she's
then
thirsty.
Ian Miles John posted about it, and then Elon immediately unfollowed him. That's really funny.
That is very funny that Elon unfollowed Ian Miles Chong over even the suggestion that they were being flirtatious or that something happened to the
It's
ex-wife.
extremely funny.
Very funny.
wild. She's obviously being flirtatious. I mean, maybe she's doing it to piss off Elon, but I don't know.
Which again is extremely funny.
I was reading Greg Sargent in the New Republic was writing about the potential pathway for Tallarico to win, and it's still a long shot. You got to do a bunch of things right. He's got to win back all the Latinos in the southern part of the state, which seems to already be happening, right? Because a lot of these people who shifted to Trump are now shifting back because of all the stuff Trump did. And you've got to run up the score in all of these cities, in Houston and Dallas and Austin, San Antonio. You've got to really run up the score, and you've got to pull off enough white people in the suburbs and the exurbs who are just done with the Trumpiness of stuff and how Paxton-y, I guess, this guy's just a corrupt criminal scumbag.
He's the swampiest. He's the
Yeah,
swampiest.
you got to do. I think they say in the 40s he's got to do there, and then you have a shot. But it's still it's a red state. It's tough
Oh,
to
yeah.
do this thing. But the good thing is that even if he loses, now the GOP is scared enough that they have to funnel money into that, which they wouldn't have funneled as much because Cornyn would have probably won. It's impossible to know, but he was pulling a few points higher. So now they got to take money out of Ohio, out of Iowa, out of all these other places to try to make sure. Because it's also, even if there's a blue wave, it's also especially embarrassing for them if they
Oh,
statewide
it would
seat
be
in Texas.
Yeah.
They
so
do not want to do that. They would rather let Mary Peltola in Alaska get in. That's not as embarrassing as losing a seat in Texas.
Texas.
Boy, it
yeah.
would be so sweet to get that Texas seat, though. It would be so nice.
Really nice.
It makes
Oh,
it set
Ted Cruz was so
2032
mad.
up for a real disappointment. But
Sure, but the stuff that you get a good chunk of time, good solid chunk of time.
Yeah, just make him so mad, and it would help so much for that period of time. I did want to briefly talk about, if we're talking about Texas and Ted Cruz and all the vegan problems.
Vegan.
Just some of the stuff they're going for is so bizarre.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
they'll You're like, oh, he's a vegan, and then you show him like eating like a turkey leg, and then all the comments are like, that looks like a big black dick to me. It's like, where's your fucking mind? You fucking freaks. Like, why? You can't be normal for a second about anything. So like that kind of culture stuff, I feel like is just kind of a waste of time. They're really latching on to this God is non-binary thing. And he's even walked it back a little bit, and like I misspoke or misspent my words or whatever. I think that's not a great idea. Don't walk it back, it's fine. I think even leaning into it is like, we don't need to talk about God's gender, like what a waste of our time, I think. But now they're talking about it, and now they're mad about it. And now Ted Cruz is like, God's not non-binary, God's a man. Everyone's like, God's a man. And I just really need a reporter to walk up to Ted Cruz and say, so you know God is a man and all that. Would you suck God's dick if he told you to? Would you do that,
to
Ted?
get you some press credentials.
So God's a man, so clearly he's got a big godly dick.
Which
Would
he
you suck it,
uses
Ted?
for what?
What's he use it
God.
for? Why does he have it? Which also gets into the whole like,
That's how we create range.
man was
I
created
can
in God's
think of two
image.
things. 3 if you include the film American Pie. I cannot think of more things to do. And if you watch the clip that the Senate Republicans are sharing, this God is non-binary thing, you can see what he's talking about how God transcends gender. God
Yeah,
is
it's
male,
fucking
God,
God's
female,
a
God is every, yeah.
God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
And I want to credit Parker Malloy for digging this up, is what Charlie Kirk said on his Surrounded when he's debating with one of these young guys. He acknowledges. Well, he's like, well, it says he in the Bible, but yeah, you could have said her, you could have done anything because God transcends gender. Of course.
Of
If
course.
God is.
It makes no sense. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Also, and it's like, well, because God's a man, because man was created in God's image. Well, actually, we're the freaks. We were second. The XY was second. XX was first. So it doesn't even make any sense.
You guys, again, this is because James Tallarico is doing so well, and he is religious. And literally, I know you guys love it when I do this. Religious people here in my mountain community have brought up Tallarico as a very interesting person.
Yo.
As I heard the word refreshing. So how about that?
Yeah.
And granted,
Seems-
these aren't people that are going to be voting in the Texas,
Sure.
but the fact that people in California are paying attention to Tallarico, a little vegan transgender.
He's not even vegan. He's not
boy.
vegan.
Sorry, I'm just saying that all of that shit doesn't matter.
I know.
No,
Exactly.
He's not vegan. And now, like, there's pictures of him. Yeah, that hot dog, whatever.
And I
Like-
so many like headlines. While Benny Johnson was like, he's secretly gay. On the bottom was like, eating a turkey leg with a napkin. Is this who we are? Is this what we're talking about? How he eats something with a napkin?
He's not gonna get his hands messy like me, a man.
Like,
Look
weren't
at
you
the barbecue
talking
sauce.
a year ago about how Mom Donnie eats with his hands, and that's disgusting. Pick an opinion and leave.
Do you guys know the indie, like the musician and DJ Jamie XX from the band The XX?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Sure.
James Tallarico, they should call him Jamie XX. That would be funny.
That's good.
No one in Texas would get it. They're
They
like,
wouldn't
oh yeah, the
No.
thing from decades ago, the guy.
I'm not
Whatever.
positive Tallarico would get it either, but
They should. Well, he should play one of those shows. You know how the Democrat artists get all the best. Democrat artists, Democratic politicians
all the best
get all the best musicians. Well, it's like
no. I heard Milli Vanilli is gonna be playing at our big celebration. Our country's
Okay,
big
that's
celebration.
pretty good. But who else? Surely
No.
you're not going to get anybody on par.
Apparently, Milli Vanilli.
with
That was
Milli
a
Vanilli.
mistake. Not.
they're all saying it's not. They're all saying. Well, we haven't heard from CNC Music Factory and Martina McBride yet, but
CNC Music. I didn't even know about that one.
The Freedom 250 concert series leading up to and going past
Y'all ready for that?
July 4th. Y'all ready for this? The listed performers are Martina McBride, Young MC, CNC Music Factory, Vanilla Ice, Milli Vanilli, The Commodores, Morris Day and the Time, Flo Rida, and Bret Michaels. And within 24 hours of this coming out, Morris Day and the Time and Young MC both said, oh, no, we're not in. And I think what they said was, we were booked for, like 250th Celebration of America concert. And then once we found out it was like a White House Trump initiative, no thank you. I called my agent and I said, I'm out. And members of Milli Vanilli, who are not the two guys you're thinking of, when you think of Milli Vanilli, and to everyone younger than me, Milli Vanilli was like this pop R&B act for the early 90s that was lip-syncing their songs, whatever. But
like, that's not a good name to advertise regardless, but it's not even those guys.
But the members of Milli Vanilli are now saying that we weren't asked, we have no idea what this is. So that's different, seemingly, from the Young MC, Morris Day and the Time situation, and who knows what dominoes will fall next.
All of them. Maybe not Bret Michaels. Maybe he'll stick around. It's just the kind of... first of all, Freedom 250, call it America 250. They just use the word freedom too much. And that's not important, but it bothers me. But clearly this is just like, you're desperate. You have no cultural power at all. You're just like, we won, we got it. And you're doing your own halftime show. You're doing this, you're doing that.
Crashing
you're so unappealing.
Is actually pretty crazy because
your approval gets lower every 4 days. And people are already dropping out. This will end up being just Kid Rock. He's not even on the list, but he eventually will be, because everyone's going to drop out and okay, Kid Rock, can you do it? Can you do it, Kid Rock? Can you just do it?
This event is the same thing as the UFC event?
It's not. Trump is trying to do a month of celebrations, but the UFC fight outside the White House is on June 14th, which is Flag Day and Trump's 80th birthday.
I'm sorry to distract from the clowning on the I just needed clarification on that, because the images of the White House right now, and I don't really care that much about the White House. I mean, I care about the attempts to build this fucking ballroom and how much money they want to spend, but woof, when you see the aerial pictures of just the demolished East Wing over the monstrosity, and even that paved area, which I guess is good for entertaining purposes instead of the lawn, but no, it just looks bad. It looks so bad. It's
over here.
It's astonishing.
Also, generally, I get it, but it's better for entertaining purposes. I don't care. It's the White House. It's the White House. I don't care if it's better for entertaining purposes. I mean, obviously, there's so much to resent about everything they do. I do resent that they are making me care about that
the White
kind
House.
Of thing. Yeah. It looks like shit.
I thought we all agreed to let it look the way it's looked, and to not tarnish its reputation with crap like this.
Yeah,
Whatever.
it's really cliche and old hat at this point.
It's trashy.
But somebody shared an image of the White House in the film Idiocracy, and it's just 1-to-1. It's just looks like garbage. This UFC event it is related because it's Freedom 250. It's it's
but
this
it's
big,
different dates.
You're not gonna, unfortunately, you won't be able to watch the UFC fight and then watch Milli Vanilli, unfortunately.
But ultimately what I was going to say is that if it was merged, it would probably be better for the attendance of both events.
I alluded to it, but I now have the official statement from Milli Vanilli, and I can read it. So this says, so there's the guys you think of as Milli Vanilli, which are the guys lip syncing. Then there are the people who were the vocalists in that band, who are, for all intents and purposes, Milli Vanilli. They said the original/real vocalists of Milli Vanilli, Jody Rocco, Linda Rocco, Brad Howell, John Davis, and Charles Shaw, will not be performing their hits live at the Great American State Fair, Others using the name Milli Vanilli that appear on the advertisement should be considered a tribute band with no association vocally or musically to our sound or songs. So,
Hell yeah.
unbelievable. So
Awesome.
they're getting a fake lip sync band to cover the fake lip sync band.
This is so funny.
Tribute bands,
That's
right?
so funny. But honestly,
Crazy.
it's more in line with the OG Milli Vanilli, so maybe that sells.
Oh, it's art. What a beautiful performance art they're putting together inadvertently. That's amazing. I hope everyone's a cover band. I hope they get a Kid Rock impersonator to do it.
Charles Shaw really went on to have a great career in winemaking, so he doesn't need this shit at all.
I don't know that the Kid Rock did so good for the alternative halftime show, though. I think
didn't
that
like
people
it? You didn't think it was
realized
good?
how. Well, no, but I think that their target audience found it bad as well.
Oh, well, I mean, it goes back to how they have to pretend constantly that they're winning and happy. We got Kid Rock, folks. We got Kid Rock in the divorce. Great. And you like that? You're happy about that? You have to pretend to like Kid Rock now?
Yeah, and also, like, what they would rather have than control of the entire United States government and the ability to make laws is the cultural victory of being able to make and form culture, and it's clear that they've lost that. It's been pretty clear for 6 to 8 months now that they lost. People still like their woke Netflix shows. Disneyland's expanding its Juneteenth celebration this year. No one watched their stupid halftime show because no one actually likes Kid Rock. Like, they lost.
Yeah,
It's
no one
over,
watched
and they would
woke
trade.
anti-woke Lord of the Rings, like...
Yeah, they trade the Supreme Court. They trade it all to be like Hollywood, to be respected in Hollywood.
And to be in it. Oh well, not gonna happen, folks.
You there,
Here's,
boy! What day is it?
I guess I can hit
Boy, it's
that
Pluto
button.
TV Day, of course!
Whoa.
Oh, good. Then I haven't missed it. There's still time. Time to celebrate all the mind-bending sci-fi and edge-of-your-seat suspense that comes with free movies and TV shows. Stuff like The 100, Battlestar Galactica, The X-Files, Tamales Impala, Professor Sasquatch, Fringe, To Sleep with the Gremlins, starring Benedict Slumberbatch. Brown butter cookies? Yes, please. Starring Benedict Yumberbatch. Ooh, too many cookies. Starring Benedict Tumtumberbatch. Passion in Aruba. Starring Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay. Arrow. Steak and shake and rattle and roll. Television, the band, the show on television. Wednesday night matinee. Wife is hungry. Little Debbie versus
Yay,
Betty
we got our
Crocker.
preferred role.
Whoever
Nice.
wins, we lose. And Charmed. Free your mind, keep your money. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.
God bless
Silence.
us! When Warbo, God bless me! I'm Warbo! Everyone!
Well, speaking of the media and how they can't quite do a great job in that sphere, what if we talk about Barry White and her journey to the
Oh, boy.
bottom? God,
Yeah.
she is just, ooh, boy.
Boy. Yeah. Jonathan, what's going on?
So what's going on is after her extremely successful shakeup of the CBS Evening News, she's
Whiskey
now
Fridays
doing-
going
you know
strong.
What? You know what? Depends on what you mean by successful, because she did shake it up.
Oh,
she
yeah.
successfully shook
You know,
it.
she shook it up. Whether or not that is
Yeah.
a successful business
They
move
never-
is a different conversation. But she did successfully, like, take the shaker and mix it up.
Yeah.
They never did those debates, did they?
No, they can't. They just didn't do the thing that nobody wanted to watch.
There was like a whole thing. They were like, we're gonna do these big debates with all these people. They never
I think
did
they
that.
stopped it after an evening with Erica Kirk. And they
Oh,
right,
don't
and she
start with that. God.
she successfully shook down CBS Evening News' ratings by like 60%. and successfully shook Tony Dokoupil to Taiwan instead of China because they couldn't get him the right visa to go to China for the Trump summit. I'm sure that wasn't her fault, but it's funny that
It's still
they
funny.
screwed it up. But anyway, now she gets to shake up the flagship CBS News magazine, 60 Minutes. Like, the gold standard, still the #1 most popular broadcast TV news magazine show, the envy of broadcast journalism, yes? For now. Sharon Alfonsi, who is the reporter who did that CCOT report that got pulled by Barry Weiss many months ago. Her contract was not renewed, and when her agent called them, they just didn't respond, so she's out. And then the executive producer was let go, and she hired a guy to be the executive producer of 60 Minutes named Nick Bilton, who was a tech correspondent at the New York Times before he became a features writer for Vanity Fair. He wrote the big Theranos feature from 2016.
Okay.
So he has a big part in that story. He wrote a movie that apparently Martin Scorsese is directing with DiCaprio, Emily Blunt, and Dwayne Johnson. So he's he wrote for that show, The Idol, on HBO.
What's he doing executive producing 60 Minutes?
Right, he has no broadcast news experience whatsoever. So
Seems like he's a good writer.
yeah,
I know things are bad in Hollywood, but you seem to be making deals, dude. What?
I mean, I'm sure he agreed to do the thing she wants, where we're doing the masses who are in the center, the 70% of Americans who are in the center. Wink, wink. We're basically pivoting this whole thing to the right, and we'll criticize Trump or really look into his stuff a little bit here, but maybe it was wokeness that made him do it. That kind of thing.
With Alfonsi, yeah, she is technically still employed with CBS though, but just no contract, and she's basically like, I'm not going to resign. They're going to have to fire me.
Yes, that's what she said.
Quote, I'm not resigning. If they want me gone because I did my job, they'll have to fire me, is the direct quote.
So we'll see what happens.
This is just very symbolic. I mean, it's more than symbolic because millions of people still watch 60 Minutes every single week, and will probably stop if it seems like the journalism sucks
Continues.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they do journalism there at 60 Minutes.
Yeah, the first Erica Kirk piece they run is maybe going to start to...
Well, that's the symbolism of it. If it's Leslie Stahl, like, we sat down with Erica Kirk, everyone's favorite person, apparently. We haven't gotten the memo yet.
How off-putting she is.
Very symbolic of what's happening in media overall, and that the billionaires running it don't actually care if fewer people are watching. It's more about crafting the narrative that they think reflects best on them, regardless of what it is.
Yeah, it's not about money at all. Washington Post, all these places, it's just, no, we're going to pump money into them to get our message out there. It's not like, well, we're pivoting to this because of the views. There's is it Washington Post or the New York Times? It has that terrible podcast now. The
Washington Post, make it make sense.
Make like that. It's like, they're not doing that because it's getting views or making them money. They're doing it because it's an ideological project to them. And to the people who are pumping money into it.
And it's interesting because we talk about frequently, all we need to do is just do a hardcore right-wing pivot, and that's where all the money is, right? You get money pumped into it. But doing this kind of wise and centrist thing, got to be a good gig because these people, going on a podcast and just saying America is a net good in the world. We should all love America. Great. What was the one that everyone was clowning on a few weeks back? Gavin Newsom giving diapers to kids is bad, actually, because it's stopping him from fixing the homelessness problem or whatever. He could be giving those diapers to strangle criminals or whatever. That's a lane, too. If you can get in with the free press crowd, no one likes them, no one watches their stuff, but there's just an endless amount of billionaire money that Bezos and Ellison, and I'm sure others, would love to give out.
Needed to rely on your old
America, I think, is a net good. I think it is too woke. I think that whatever the diaper thing is, I agree.
Bezos, are you listening?
Whatever it is, whatever you want me to say. Sure.
Whatever it is.
Whatever.
I mean, I haven't even watched this. I just pulled up their post of their latest short, and it just says America isn't that good. We can watch this, but it's like
another one of their videos up for 4 hours with literally 0 likes and 8
Ooh, that's
comments.
bad.
yeah, like I mean, a bunch of people, like obviously Cody and me
I got
follow this
it.
account.
Gotta keep up on
88
it.
followers.
Followers.
So 1/44 of all their followers are me and Cody.
Why are you guys following?
Because I want to see this shit.
Whenever this pops up, I
This
gotta.
is your version of me, like, listening to Flagrant or something.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
you just gotta.
I'm gonna force us to watch. It's 36 seconds. Whatever this is, we're watching it.
The United States is not the root of every single problem in the world.
What would you say to the Americans who are guilt-ridden about America's role in the global politics?
They should actually travel a little bit more. The more you see in terms of innovation and technology in the United States, it ends up across the world. And it comes from phones to computers to other things. That's actually a lot to be grateful for. And having a successful America means also having other countries that can benefit from it.
But you didn't.
I agree that Americans should travel, but not to see American products in other countries. And also, are you assuming that other countries don't make products or innovate? I don't understand. Go ahead,
It's
Cody.
just like the question was about like how do you respond to people like with like issues with like America's position and effect on the world globally and like their politics, how we affect other nations, and she's just like, I mean, we got iPhones out of it. But what about all the bad stuff that he's alluding to? And I don't know. It just seems it's just like an empty kind of.
Yeah,
well,
no,
we
no,
have-
that's not.
And
answering the
also, we
question or
cut
addressing the point of the
USAID
question.
and killed
Yeah.
a bunch of people. So, like, we're actually not doing the things that you're, like, praising. We cut all this fucking cancer research, all this stuff.
The way the right always says, well, that's just the hate America crowd over there. The hate America crowd, like, agrees with this and wants it to be true, wants us to be the best version of ourselves, where all those things we're doing are helping people and all that stuff. Like, no one wants to believe that that's impossible, but that's not really what we're doing most of the time.
And you can't point to that and ignore the big column of other things that are actually, like, being used. Yeah.
And also, what's the point of pumping this out? Like, okay, great, yeah, America, like, oh, they watch our TV shows and stuff. Great, okay. What am I supposed to get out of this? What point are you trying to make? Why are you hosting this podcast?
Nothing. That's why no one's engaged with that. No one has engaged with that clip for a reason, because it's a big fat nothing.
Well, a bunch of people who are making fun of it on the comments.
And then, like, this, like, all the stock photos they show are, like, one, like, generic, like, man with test tubes, which, again, we, like, cut all the research. And then just kids watching TV and staring at phones. I don't, like, what do you...
Well,
also,
they are
this...
concerned. I think that a lot of people do want America to have cultural relevance around the world, because that makes Americans money. When American TV shows or products get sold, that has nothing to do with the point of the conversation.
Oh, they're
Right.
scrolling on Twitter now. Look, we got all these kids scrolling on Twitter. Also, and this is probably not true, but whenever they post a clip like that, I'm like, did you script this and film it and that's it? Or is this actually a 30-second clip from a larger episode? Because it doesn't seem like it. It seems like we want to do like an America's Good thing. All right, so Mask that, we'll toss up some test tube image and call it a day.
Well, I think that's gonna do it for us here today, folks. Oh boy, I do.
Suck it, Alistar.
Boy, oh,
Good. Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh boy, oh
Can
boy.
you go with your friend?
Like and subscribe. We'll comment for the algorithm.
Algo
Hey, thank you in advance for that.
The Algorico.
The algorithm.
Get in there.
Okay, talgorithm. The talgorithm?
The talgorithm,
Regardless, however you want to interpret that, we'll be back next week. And also, we love you
More?
very much.
Much. Oh.
Okay, I am apparently live. Let me know if you hear me. This is my first ever live stream. Well, not first ever. I've obviously done live streams before, but this is my first ever solo live stream on the channel. So if you can hear me, drop it in the comments so that I know that I'm not just talking to a, okay, it looks like we're live. Welcome! Wow, this is my first ever solo live stream. I am very nervous. It's way different than just recording behind a camera. And if I say a word wrong, or if I, you know, whatever, I know I can just be like, oh, I'll just step away for a minute. So, welcome. Thank you for your support over here. And yes, it is a real live stream. I know that's always a question. Hello to Sky, tuning in from Germany. Hello to Give Me Your Cats, Please. I have no cats for you, but I appreciate you coming on the live stream today. I did also just turn my channel memberships on. I've been like thinking about that for a really long time, and so finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So they're fully turned on if you want to check that out. Welcome to James, who just became a YouTube member. So thank you for supporting my channel. Today, as you probably could tell from and thanks to Chris too, as you could tell from the title, I am going to talk about the Lego theft situation that has been absolutely blowing up on the internet. Of all of the videos I ever do, I swear I received more emails about the Lego controversy, the Lego theft, than I've ever received about anything. So this was going to be like a more casual AMA, like ask me anything, but then I was like, I just have to talk about this. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to explain a little bit of the context of what's been going on. This has to do with a YouTuber called Reckless Ben. Hopefully you can see that. He apparently got, somebody told him that the story that there was someone in Oregon who had, and you know, like I said, this is my first live stream, so be kind. I'm gonna try to get everything right, every single fact and detail right, but if I misspeak, I'm sorry. I'm not used to this pressure. So basically, Reckless Ben, the YouTuber, found out about this situation happening where this man, this older man, had slowly but surely built up this massive Lego Star Wars collection. And he had planned on using this as a way to have this legacy for his family. He went to go sell it to a company called, drumroll please, Bricks and Minifigs. And essentially, he goes and writes up a contract and is like, all right, we're good to go. The kits, the Lego sets are going to be on consignment. So once the sets get sold, he'll get the money from the sale, and Bricks and Minifigs gets to take a small portion. Lo and behold, though, suddenly well, we'll get into it in a bit, but the video I just showed is kind of the intro to the story. In short, the Legos are basically stolen from him. And it is allegedly about $200,000 worth of Legos. So an immense amount of Legos, and stolen from a very old man who's basically trying to have some money to leave to his kids. And Reckless Ben takes on this person's case to say, okay, I'm going to help you get your Legos back. And it's a wild story. I'm going to talk about it in today's video. If you remember, if you followed my channel before, you know that I did recently talk about Legos because Mormons, and there is a real Mormon connection here. So you might hear Reckless Ben, Lego, Oregon, what does this have to do with Mormons? The answer is actually a lot. And when I had watched the first video, I was like, I don't know if there's enough substance here to talk about it from the Mormon angle, basically. And then I joined his Patreon and I watched part 2 of the story. And this part of the story is all almost exclusively happening in Utah with Utah police. I don't even know, after watching the video, I swear that the police showed up to his home maybe 15 times, not just his home. They tracked him down on the street, they tracked him down when he was trying to go serve papers. all of the people involved are Mormon. The CEO of Bricks and Minifigs is called Ammon McNeff, and in Reckless Ben's video, he says Ammon, and I'm like, oh, I don't think he knows that Ammon is a Book of Mormon character. So the CEO of the entire Bricks and Minifigs company is literally named after the book of, someone in the Book of Mormon.
Oh, yes.
So and that's not like the only Mormon connection. I'll say that. So.
They know what it's.
So we're going to watch a little bit of that video of part 2 from his Patreon. I'm going to explain more of the story, but the other thing I was going to show to build the Mormon-Utah Lego connection is this. Yes, I am going to answer questions. Jackson is helping with the stream, so he's going to pop some questions up. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm going to try to explain the story and not get too sidetracked by questions.
Let's see. Hi, Jackson.
I would like to know how Jesus Christ showed up for ancient people, because that, so that's, I'm going to try to stay on topic, basically. Mormons are really into Legos, and I will, I'll answer questions, but I'm going to try to stay on topic a little bit. So this is what I wanted to show you all. I showed this in my own Lego video. I built a Mormon Lego set. It's this little Lego temple. The Mormon Lego company, as you can tell, Mormons are very into Legos. There's a Mormon-owned Lego company that's called Brigham Young, and it's not Lego TM. It's like basically knockoff Lego, but Brigham Young is that website, so you can Google that if you want to see their website. But this is Google Trends for the last 5 years. As you can see, interest in Lego has been going up. So I'm going to show you. Oh, I already gave it away. Utah has the highest search volume for Lego, for the term Lego, in the last 5 years. And I'm sure if I switch it to, I usually do this, so since 2004, which is basically since Google Trends has been collecting data, Utah has had the highest interest in Lego. And you can see 76 versus 100, so that's like, these 4 numbers are all pretty close together. Utah is like way above the curve on this. So Utah is the heartland for Mormons. It's the Mormon Mecca. And that's also why I think it was so interesting to see part 2 of Reckless Ben's video, because it really shows how closely, allegedly, it seems that these parties are tied. So the CEO and the corporate office of Bricks and Minifigs, as well as the police department, and all of them are Mormon, and it's all happening in a very American fork. I actually, when I was a teacher, I was a 9th grade teacher, and I taught in American Fork junior high. So, wow. So we have a lot to get into. There's a lot of connections here. And I do also think Lego specifically, similar to Disney, I've talked before about how Mormons love Disney. These are all like ultra family friendly things that Mormons obsess over, Mormons love. I'll say even, I was actually in a Bricks and Minifigs like a week ago. I had no idea. I had no idea it was connected to the Mormon Church, which is crazy because I feel like I know these things to the point that I'm kind of obnoxious because I'm so constantly like, here's a little factoid for you. But yeah, so I didn't know that they were owned by, it was a Mormon-owned company until Reckless Ben kind of broke the story for me. So, but yeah, I think one of the reasons Mormons are so obsessed with Legos is because it's so family friendly. And one of the reasons I think that this story is so interesting is that it's taking this ultra family friendly brand, Lego. You almost, other than Disney, maybe couldn't think of a more family friendly brand. And it's pairing it with this like very dark story about Legos being stolen from a very old man. So it almost is a mirror to me to the Mormon Church story, where it's like front facing, very happy and friendly and bubbly, and then if you look beneath the surface, there's like fraud, there's lawsuits, there's shady business practices, there's the hoarding of money, there's taking advantage of old people. And so I feel like there's actually a lot of overlap here between this story and the generalities of what the Mormon Church is. Okay, so I'm going to remove that from my screen. All right, so, and I feel like even the number of times that the lawsuit comes into play, and Jackson, if there are any questions, please feel free to share them, but it's funny too, this whole the lawsuit situation, because the Mormon Church is currently suing John DeLynn for trademark infringement, and in Reckless Ben's video, he literally tries to trick Bricks and Minifigs into suing him for trademark infringement. And so even just the litigious aspect of this story is very similar to everything I know about the Mormon Church. So let's dive into the general explanation of the story, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Mormon connection. Thank you for allowing me to drink my water. Okay, so we're going to start with there's basically. I've explained a little bit. There's a man named Brian Mansell, and it's his dad's Star Wars Lego collection, and it's apparently the largest Lego Star Wars collection in the world. He gives it to Bricks and Minifigs under a contract where, and they say very explicitly in the contract, we own these Legos until they're sold. So that's pretty basic for consignment. Just because they're physically in your business does not mean you automatically owe them. You are displaying them for purchase, and then at the time of purchase, you send me, maybe if it's $100, I get 90, the business gets 10. Pretty typical. So come to find out that basically now the store is withholding the Lego sets. And there's this interesting part in Reckless Ben's video, and I'll just show the, I'll just show this. Where essentially, sorry, thank you for your patience. I'm just going to have it on silent and explain. So this is Brian Mansell. He's explaining to Reckless Ben. And at this point in this video, basically the owners, or like the corporate of Bricks and Minifigs, goes into this subsidiary, goes into this location, and basically says, hey, we are going to take over this franchise, and now all of your merchandise belongs to us. We're using this like legalese franchise agreement to say like, hey, this franchise was never yours to begin with, we're taking it over. And this massive amount of Legos, the Star Wars Legos that are all in the shop, like disappear overnight. And in the video, you can see that they are this is the dude from corporate. He's essentially saying, like, you guys have to leave. This video right here, actually, it's in my served videos, but this is the video. I'll link it below later, but this is the couple that the Lego franchise was basically, the Bricks and Minifigs franchise was essentially stole from. They had it stolen from them under their feet. So, and apparently, they are now gonna be involved in a lawsuit, from what I can understand. So, it's like everybody's suing everyone at this point. But these people that owned the Bricks and Minifigs store, they were not the ones who stole the Legos, from what allegedly, from what he explains in the video. Basically, the corporate office came in and swooped in and took all of these Legos, which is insane, especially since they have a contract saying the store still never owned the Legos to begin with. It's not like, because when I first heard the story, I was like, oh, so they took the Legos, they paid them, and something like that. No, they haven't paid them like a single dime, apparently, because they tried to put them on consignment and then took them out from under them. And the saddest part, I mean, that's not the saddest part, but basically Brian Mansell, do you feel left out by not being sued? Yeah, I actually don't want to be sued, which I'm sure that there would be a lot of attention at that point, but personally, I'd rather not be sued. So, I mean, Reckless Ben is literally, in part 2, you see he gets imprisoned. Like, he's literally in prison. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think that I'm not going to feel left out about not being sued, but I'll let you know if that position changes. So basically, the store changes hands, and the son, Brian, is trying to go in and figure out how to get the Legos back.
Pretty generic in a way.
There's new ownership in the store, so he's like, hey, where are my Legos? And then the new ownership is like, you'll have to take it up with corporate. We have no idea. This is new ownership. And I'm just going to start calling him Ben, because calling him Reckless Ben over and over again is a lot, but maybe, I don't know. You let me know what you think I should say. What makes the most sense? So basically, they start going back and forth, where Reckless Ben will go to the, he will go to this like small organ business and say, hey, where are the Legos? And they'll say, hey, we are just a franchise. Like we have nothing to do with this. We're new ownership. You should go to talk to corporate. So then he goes over to talk to corporate, and then corporate is like, whoa, we have no power here. This is franchise by franchise. We're just like we're just like the license, we just license our brands to these people. We have nothing to do with it. So it's like he's going back and forth and being told by both sides, like pointing at the other person. So they keep redirecting him, and then you can go watch the rest of the video. I'll link it below. But basically, he tries to do all these stunts to try to get them to pay attention to him and sue him, or try to get the Legos back. Like, it's just a lot of antics, and it's very funny. He tries to start a Lego cult, which was hilarious. He also has a video about like infiltrating Scientology, so very interesting channel. Definitely check it out. But near the end, essentially, basically, they seem like they're gonna maybe give the Legos back, but then they decide not to. So we kind of get a cliffhanger. And I honestly think that these people thought that this was gonna just go away. Just an annoying YouTuber. They actually put out a company statement that said, hey, the internet, sure, this is viral right now, but if we just give it a few days, it'll blow over. It did not blow over, at least yet, give it a few years, I guess. But I even went to go look at the Bricks and Minifigs. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. Bricks and Minifigs location that all of this was happening. And even a year ago, you can go see, don't Mormons have the eighth? Yeah, we're gonna get into where Reckless Ben finds out that they're Mormon, and he's like, I thought Mormons weren't supposed to lie or steal. Apparently not. So I'm pulling up there we go. So it was I believe this was the location, and apparently they've been getting review bombed, but I'm gonna see if I can find, let's see,
I like that idea.
Filter by lowest reviews. This place is closed. Yeah, here we go. It says, to those of you who intend to purchase vintage, collectible Lego Star Wars products from this business, you should know that these new owners are refusing to honor the consignment agreement and refusing to return the Star Wars product to the consignee. And so if you go back even a year ago, like long before this YouTube video, you can see that people, so here's another one, not honoring their consignment agreement in a huge lot of Star Wars Legos, basically stealing from sets, stealing sets from the owners and not communicating with them. Do not buy anything here, and it has 27 likes, which for a Google review is like a lot. So even a year ago, people are still getting upset about this. And like I said, when I had first heard this story, I was like, that is like objectively a crazy story. It is objectively a sad story, but I still haven't maybe seen enough like of the Mormon side of this that it makes sense to maybe talk about. But oh, no, my friend. So let's move on to part 2. Because I think that that's where it really gets wild, and that's where we have the Mormon connection. So basically, Reckless Ben decides to go to, he goes to Utah, because that's where the consignment, or that's where the corporate office is. And he is basically trying to go knock on their door, and then he starts to try to go to their homes, because he's trying to sue them. And this is where we get the part where the police start getting called on him constantly, which this poor guy, he's very willing to put up with a lot of crap. Like I feel like too, oh, thank you, Guru Magazine. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast. When I get nervous, I kind of talk fast, so sorry guys. like I said, my first live stream, so thank you for showing up. Well, not my first, like I said. The first time I ever tried to live stream, I talked for about 10 minutes, and then I realized I hadn't clicked the button, the big red button that says begin stream. Yeah, part 2 is crazy. American Fork PD detains him on false pretenses at least twice. And raids, yeah, they raid him with a search warrant. So I'm going to try to show some portions. Let's see. I'm going to mute this and then just show you. So just as an example, like there, you know, this happens throughout this entire video, and I'll link his Patreon below because this video is fascinating. But as you can see, he's not even in the driver's seat. This is not even, Reckless Ben is not even in the driver's seat. Crazy. The cops have just seemingly randomly pulled them over and start interrogating them, and then they're not even interrogating the driver. They say they pulled over the driver for a rolling stop or because he didn't stop at the stop sign, and then Reckless Ben goes and gets the redacted or the PD videos. This is also another angle, obviously, from his own camera, but he gets the police car footage that makes it abundantly clear he did a full stop. So they basically did it like an illegal traffic stop, and they start interrogating him. And they're not even interrogating the driver, who apparently did the full traffic stop. They're actually interrogating the person who's a passenger in the back seat. So this happens again and again with the APD, American Fork Police Department. And American Fork is incredibly Mormon. Here's another portion where he's talking, I actually, when I was watching this, I had so many moments where I was like, wow, and then the police came and went, and that was the end of it. And then it's over and over and over again, they just keep coming back. There's one scene where he's parked in a car trying to serve the papers, it's this portion, and just over and over and over again, I think when they're sitting here, he's sitting with a girl whose job is to serve papers. They come, they interrogate him, and then they're like, well, he's not doing anything illegal because he's just sitting in the car. And then they decide, okay, well, I guess we'll... Then the cops leave, and then the cops come back, and then the cops leave, and then the cops come back. And this is all American Fork Police Department. And I'll say one of the, because as I said, I was a teacher and I taught at American Fork Junior High. So I am very familiar with this part of the country. And I found this Reddit thread on the Mormon subreddit. There's been a lot of threads, whether it's ex-Mormon or Latter-day Saint. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about it. I'm going to American Fork to investigate the police corruption. Am I in danger? I mean, in Reckless Ben's video, they dislocate his arm. And he has it's not even just that he's saying, oh, they hurt my arm and it hurt. He shows his x-rays to show the damage, basically. So, I mean, I can't promise you are or are not in danger, but I don't think it's, the level to which they're just antagonizing him over and over and over again shocked me. And he's also Reckless Ben, his demeanor, what I think is so interesting about watching him is I've seen a lot of YouTubers do this type of content, and they are a little bit more antagonistic. They'll be like, you look dumb, or they'll be rude, or maybe they'll they'll just do something that's not illegal, but just a little bit more obnoxious. Whereas him, when you're watching him in these videos, he's very polite, he's very almost quiet, he's soft-spoken. It's how could you ever legitimize oh yeah, he was being obnoxious to the point of we should arrest him, even where he gets his arm damaged or hurt or whatever. His I wish it would keep me there because I kind of like that more, but where he gets his arm dislocated is when he gets swatted. So you can see it's escalating. So he gets traffic stopped. Oh, here's the scene. So that's where he pulls his arm. And that pull dislocates his arm. And you can hear the cop saying, stop resisting, stop resisting. But then when you see the body cam footage, it's he was not resisting. How could you, I mean, here it is again. How could you ever say, he's just standing there with his arms at his sides, and he's a very calm, in all the videos that he posts, he just seems pretty chill. He's super, yep. Yes, sir. Yes, officer. No, sir. Thank you. Not doing anything illegal, just trying to get my friend's Legos back. So I actually was pretty disturbed by the level to which these police people were like messing with him. I also was going to show this. This is the school district I worked for, and I will read the headline. It says, Alpine School District accused of failing to respond to reports of sexual assault. So I remember when this happened. This was a few years ago in 2023, which is around the same time some of these videos are from. But this is American Fork, the Alpine School District, American Fork. This is where I worked. This was my school district. This is also the place where I've told stories about how all the Mormon kids were, or many of the Mormon kids were very rude to some of the students who were gay, some of the students who were not white. It is not only a very Mormon place, but I think this is, when I worked at American Fork High School, or junior high, that was the place that I was working when I stopped believing in the Mormon church. And not because the students or the culture or like the parents were so bad it made me lose my faith. Oh, we're at 665. Can we get the devil's number? We'll see. Someone's gonna leave just to make me disappointed. Damn it, I didn't get to see it. Okay. So yeah, I think that the way that power works in Utah, and I'm sure we'll watch in a minute where Reckless Ben talks specifically about realizing that these people are Mormon, that the CEO and everyone involved is Mormon, and that the policemen are all Mormon, and we'll watch that in a second. But I think seeing how power works in this video, it makes me almost wonder if Reckless Ben knew what he was getting into. He probably did, because he has also looked into Scientology, so maybe he's like been there, done that. But yeah, so I was gonna show. Yeah, this is crazy. Obviously, I think it just shows how much they like. In the video, they even say like they protect their own, or like the cop rolls the window rolls down and he's like, "Welcome to Utah." Or he's like, we do things a little different here. And so the Mormon police corruption in American Fork reminds me of the police in Short Creek during the FLDS reign. Yeah, so that was actually what I was about to show you. Let me pull it up. Where's my Reddit thread? There we go. This was the Reddit. We are at 666. Thank you, Kenneth, for telling me. It's funny, I'm sure my side lags from what you guys see, so maybe it did show that. But I'm sad I didn't get to celebrate with you guys. So let me add this to the screen. Here's the Reddit thread I was showing earlier. So this says,
I can't tell if that's a commander only. Don't worry.
This whole video gave me Colorado/Short Creek vibes. PD seems to be suffering from the good old boy syndrome. And this is a very interesting Reddit thread. A lot of people kind of chiming in. And the Mormon subreddit is a little bit more balanced, where there's some ex-Mormons, some active Mormons. I've joked that Ben needs to get baptized so the cops have to protect him. So what this comment is referring to is that there is a really long history of police corruption in what's called Short Creek, Colorado City. That's the heart of the FLDS. So basically, especially if the further you go back, the more there is corruption. For example, I've heard stories about where a woman will be trying to flee polygamy. So she is barefoot, it's the middle of the night, 2 a.m., and she runs out of town with nothing to her name. And the police are all FLDS, so the police are the cult, and they will go hunt for her and then turn their lights on, woo, 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 and then go pick up the girl and take her back to her situation. And so, to me, that is obviously super crazy. I feel like, and it just shows that, and I think this is not just Mormons, I think this is in a lot of places where the religion and the government are so enmeshed, where the police almost become like the mafia. I feel like watching this video, I was like, this is why they call it the Mormon Mafia. Because they seem to be colluding so much. So that's one example of the FLDS. Another thing it reminded me of is, and I'll say too, they even have had to go in on the state level. The state of Utah will go in and try to fire everyone in the Short Creek Police Department, only for more FLDS to get hired, only for them to circumvent it. And if you watch the Trust Me documentary, you know that even in that, there was a guy who was like, well, we knew that Sam Bateman had 30 wives and that 7 of them were 11 years old or whatever. I mean, a lot of them were very, very little girls, children. But I just, looking into this stuff hurts my feelings. I just don't really like to subject myself to this. And I feel like made me just want to vomit. I was like, how can you be a cop and say that? Like, this is, sure, maybe if you're a private citizen, you are allowed to be like, yeah, I don't really feel like digging into this. But if you're a policeman, then it was like, you're the only one who can help them. You don't have the privilege of turning away. Going to drink another drink.
Each player discards all cards.
Oh yeah, I have really wanted to do the a video about the boarding schools in Utah, because that is another like Paris Hilton. I assume you've heard of Paris Hilton. My friend Paris Hilton, just kidding. When she was in her like teenage treatment of like troubled teens treatment, she was in Utah. She was actually in Provo, Utah. And I have no doubt that almost every single person that was treating her that way was a member of the Mormon Church. And there's very little oversight into the troubled teen industry. To the point that like many people have shared pretty horrific stories, especially because it's still kids. So they don't know how to advocate for themselves. They're just teenagers who have been sent away by their parents. They're not allowed to contact anyone, and they are often treated very, very poorly. Final example of the integration between the government and the religion is at BYU, Brigham Young University. So, then I'll get back to, then I'll show you the clip from Reckless Ben, from the Mormon explanation. So essentially in that, basically when I went to BYU, this was a huge problem. So you have, the students have to meet with a religious leader, a Mormon bishop, pretty often, at least once a year. And the bishop will tell them if they are like righteous enough to be at the university. It's called an ecclesiastical endorsement. There's also BYU police. So the BYU police will, they are on campus and they are acting as police officers in a campus capacity. And then there's also the Provo City Police. So like 2 police forces, then you have the bishop and the Mormon Church itself. And there have been multiple times where someone will confess something or have a crime happen with the Provo police, and the Provo police, there's a total clear line of communication, and they go and tell your bishop what happened. And if your bishop thinks that you are sinful or that you are unrepentant, the bishop can kick you out of the university. So something that you do, like something that you get in trouble for through the city police, can end up on your college, like messing up your college like experience or whatever. And this has also happened with, how is any of this legal in America? Probably it's because it's a theocracy. So, and that's why I think this Mormon angle is so interesting to this case, is that Mormons often, I think Mormon-owned businesses often use these types of tactics to make more money, to have more control, to have even like partnerships with other members of the church that are all in the bishopric. Like, it's such a tight, closed system that I think that, and then even on the state level, all of the laws that are being passed are being passed by members of the Mormon Church. So the senators are Mormon, the congresspeople are Mormon, the governor is Mormon. And so, like, if there's a law that a lot of people don't really like, but it's kind of contrary to, I mean, this is the same with the data center, right? Like, a lot of the citizens are very upset about the data center, and yet it's legal in America because the people who hold the power all have this vested interest in, because of states' rights. Yeah, that's more of a concise way to put it. But in Utah, because it's the Mormon HQ, the state's rights that are elevated are basically Mormon church rights or Mormon cultural rights. For non-academic conduct, yeah, so BYU has a very specific honor code. I'll see if I can look it up and put it on the screen. BYU honor code. Look, the computer knew exactly where I wanted to go because I've looked at this so many times. I'll put it on the screen. So it looks pretty short, right? But this is what members of, even if you're not Mormon, this is what you're supposed to agree to as part of being this is what you're supposed to agree to as part of being a BYU student. So this is everything I once lived, which once you're Mormon, you're already kind of by default living a chaste life. So at least for me, that was like, yeah, I'm already, yep. Like most of these rules, it's like it's not like I went from drinking coffee to not drinking coffee for my university experience. But basically, if you are found breaking the rules, whether it's the dress and grooming standards or any of these other ones like drinking alcohol or drinking coffee, they could kick you out of the university, which is crazy. So that is basically why it's so bad to be potentially caught by BYU police. Yeah, and I agree with Alchemist, and thank you for that, your donation. There is rarely church punishment for financial crimes. My home stakes high priest council was full of landowners who screwed over other church members. That is completely unsurprising to me. So basically, a common story is a girl is out on a date. During the date, there is an assault. She goes and reports it to the police. Say she reports it to the Provo police. The Provo police may then call her bishop, or they may tell the BYU police, who then will tell her bishop. And if that happened, unfortunately, if that happened while she was, say it happened at midnight, that actually means she was breaking curfew because there's a strict curfew, or we'll say 1 a.m. Because I can't remember exact curfew hours, but 1 a.m. you're definitely breaking curfew. So the BYU bishop may say, well, I'm really sorry that happened to you, but unfortunately because you were out at 1 o'clock, you were breaking curfew, and that means that you are now subject to being looked into and being punished for this thing that happened to you because you broke the rules and so it doesn't, your assault is like a whole other thing. All that matters to us is that you broke the honor code. And there's even a place you can go on this website, a curfew for adults is wild. Definitely agree. And they've done a little bit ever since they got outed for this. Like they've done a little bit to try to, what do they consider romantic behavior? So, so romantic behavior, I'm trying to think of what you're referencing here, because it says, let me read so it's different, and that's the other messed up thing. Romantic behavior is against the rules for same-sex couples. And this is my last question, because then I'm going to get back to the story. For same-sex couples, holding hands would be considered same-sex romantic behavior that could get you kicked out of the university. And I'll put this back on the screen so you guys can all see. As you can see, it says, living a chaste and virtuous life also includes abstaining from same-sex romantic behavior. So if you're a straight couple, you can walk around campus holding hands, even if you're dating. So that's allowed. That wouldn't get you kicked out of the university. You can also be seen cuddling, kissing, maybe not kissing too boisterously, no like tongue or anything, but at the very least you can kiss, like a closed mouth kiss, and nobody would even blink an eye. I mean, there's a lot of like canoodling at BYU. I'll say that for sure. But if you are even holding hands in something that could be interpreted as same-sex romantic behavior, that could get you kicked out of the university. So, I mean, that to me is what's crazy, is that if that gets caught, that you could still get kicked out. But to get back to the story, those are a few pieces to basically explain and show how in Utah it is very common for the through line of communication to be very fluid between whether it's your ecclesiastical leader, like your bishop or stake president, and the police. It's also a very tight-knit community. So when I was watching this, I'll give my hot take and I'll say, allegedly, this is my conspiracy theory, is that I would reckon to guess that the CEOs that the leadership of this corporate office of Bricks and Minifigs, they are super Mormon. I am guessing that the police, that they're very prominent in the community, because they're probably pretty well off. There's so many different franchises of Bricks and Minifigs. When I lived in San Antonio, we had one. I just was here in Austin and we visited one. So there's a lot of them. So that the more of them there are, the more money they probably have. My guess is that one of these corporate people, the CEO, Ammon or whatever, is in the same ward or congregation with some of these police people, and that they are kind of closing ranks. And he's like, hey, this crazy, obnoxious YouTuber is out to get me. I need your help. Can you do something about this? And here's his name, here's his license plate, here's what his friends look like. And I would not be surprised at all if that, because he's buddies with the cops, this is happening. Mormon Mafia, like I said. I highly doubt that this involves the Mormon Church TM on an organizational level. Mostly because I don't think it's worth their time, because they already have $300 billion. I don't think the chump change of 200,000 is anything to sneeze at for them. But I do think that the Mormon Church and Utah creates a very specific culture of business, of this like tight-knit community, the grapevine. And so even though I don't think any of this is coming from like a church level, I do think this is coming from like a cultural level, and what's happening at the local congregation, if that makes sense. So I'm going to show you finally, sorry, I've been referencing it 500 times, but I kept getting sidetracked. I'm going to show you the portion of the video where he intros the Mormon part of the story. So I'm going to try to, okay. Let's see if that's, can you guys see that? Nope. Like I said, thanks for your patience. I'll just zoom in a little bit. Okay. So here we go.
Plain-wide celebration.
And again, for some reason, they are really trying to protect these criminals.
He didn't steal anything. He inherited the store from somebody.
No, he stole $20,000 because I've been spending the last 3 months in the case, and I won in court.
He inherited the store. He's being blamed for everything that the previous owner did, and he's trying.
Well, that's a lie. So we.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He's still trying to clean up the mess from the previous owner, and now he's catching blame for it. And he's just.
So you can already hear, and it's about, the Mormon part is about to come on, because you can see that we have them in their temple clothes, or whatever, or not temple robes, but church clothes. You can hear, like, in the way she's approaching this, she's very much defending the corporate employees, or the corporate owners of Bricks and Minifigs. Like, she's going straight to, like, let me defend them, versus saying, okay, like, let me hear you out.
Trying to clean up the mess from the previous owner.
No, him saying that it's the previous owner, that's a lie. And we already proved this in court.
If you come back and set foot on this property, you're going to go to jail.
The police gave me a formal trespass notice, which I took a picture of it and sent it to the court as proof I tried to have this good faith conversation, but Brandon didn't want to have it with me. And turns out this was good enough. My court case with Brandon Best got accepted. But my court case with Josh is still going to be rejected until I find a way to have this good faith conversation.
Is that not the most Mormon looking person you've ever seen? Oh, also, okay, you see that? Maybe you can't see that. Those are his garments. And that's why, everybody's like, Mormons aren't secret society or something, but I'm like, he's literally wearing his temple clothes in this, which of course he is, because all adult members of this church wear this religious underwear. But it is kind of crazy that he's like, apparently, allegedly, actively scamming people out of their Legos and out of their money while wearing this like religious underwear that is meant to, basically meant to show like, hey, I'm a good person, I'm a follower of Christ. So he's like wearing his follower of Christ magic underwear Wow, scamming people. It's ridiculous. It says, if this got embarrassing for the church, would leadership intervene? I'm going to say probably not, only because they are so hesitant to ever do anything. You know, they haven't intervened for Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, for example. So I'm going to say no, but let's, I think I was a little early on the Mormon part, so let's see. It should be next.
With him. So I decided to see if I could find Josh online, to see if I could look up any more information about him.
Yeah, they all look the same. No.
Joshua Johnson.
Yeah, Joshua Johnson.
To lower their tax liabilities and minimize their exposure to lawsuits. That's how ironic. Are you kidding me, dude? That's what he's known for, is reducing people's exposure to lawsuits.
After some more research, we found out that both Josh and Brandon are super hardcore Mormon.
Dun, dun, dun! And as soon as I heard the word Ammon, I was like, yep, they sound pretty Mormon to me. So now we've found a looks like they found this on Facebook or something. So this is what they do next.
It was actually extremely surprising to me, because if Josh and Brandon are truly Mormons, they believe that stealing is wrong, and if they steal, they're going to go into hell. Or I guess in Mormonism they call it the outer darkness. But still, Brandon and...
Hey, and that, I mean, also, he doesn't know how to say Ammon correctly. He called it Ammon, but he does know about outer darkness, so I was impressed by that little niche knowledge. Mormons don't call it hell. But to be technical, he'd probably go to the Celestial Kingdom because of the technicality of he's not Satan's follower in the same sense of the people who are supposed to go to outer darkness, but that's beside the point.
Josh probably actually believed that this is going to be eternity for them. I mean, Josh even swore to me on his Mormon God in the last video that he would give us the Legos back.
I promise you, I swear to God. I promise you on everything.
But maybe I can use this to my advantage. My problem right now seems to be that Josh is never going to listen to anything I ever tell him. If someone from his church heard this audio, maybe he would listen to them. So after finding exactly what church these guys go to...
Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a second. So basically, he goes and finds a Mormon kid, and they go to the church. I guess, should I just show it? I probably should just show it. It's just funny, though, because it's like, it's nice that I just think that him having a Mormon go to his house is hilarious, but I'll just show it.
We went to it and showed one of the Mormons there this audio clip. The Mormon thought that the best thing to do was to have a talk with Josh to save him from going to this outer darkness.
Okay, good luck. I guess me and Tyler are staying back because we're already trespassed. So,
yeah, we ended up just driving home, but on our way back, this happened.
So, of course, they get pulled over again. And the part where they have him go to the part where they have the Mormon kid go to the person's house is pretty anticlimactic, because it's just the same thing where the Mormon kid is like, he's like, I'm here to see Brother Johnson. I'm from the American Fork 3rd Ward, and he's just very Mormon. And the police get called again, and they're like, why are you here? And then they get pulled over here. It's like, and that's why I'm like, I feel like this is clearly that they're in cahoots with the police. To me, allegedly. I feel like I had to do this all the time when I talked about John DeLynne's lawsuit, because it's like, once we start slapping lawsuits left and right, it's like, we're not going to get anything done. It's also I feel like I should have said this at the top, but the idea that a business would pursue this path with like this much negative exposure rather than just returning the Legos to the man, it is a little incomprehensible. I do feel like maybe there's like a sense of bravado amongst these people who are just like, hey, I'm powerful, I have all these businesses, I've got the cops on my side, I'm sure it'll blow over eventually, but it is surely at least $200,000 worth of like brand damage has been done at this point to this company, especially because they're known for being such a wonderful family-friendly business. Like maybe if this was being done by Hooters or something, or another business that doesn't have a great rep, like people would be like, oh yeah, like that's tracking for me. Of course, disreputable business does disreputable things, but instead we have this like Lego brand where I mean, when I go in Bricks and Minifigs, it's like so cute and so nice, and I feel like that's the most head scratcher part of this entire story is like, how could they not just say, let's throw in the towel, we'll give him his Legos back, but instead they're like, we do things differently here in Utah. And there's another portion, I think, well, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there's another portion where they go and they try to accuse him of having heroin in his car. They are straight up just like, they do a search for 3 hours. And these kids, and I guess they're probably not kids, I don't know how old they are, but like, they do seem very, he's, like I said, he's very calm, he's very respectful. Look how he's standing there. That's how he stands in every single video. He's standing there with his head a little tilted, just like, I'm listening. And he's willing to take a drug test. He says, search the car. They're not even trying to get lawyers or anything, but the level to which the police are basically seemingly colluding with this private citizen over this Lego thing, I actually was shocked, and I think that's why we have this connection being drawn between this Mormon-owned company and between the way that they're choosing to fight this, the way that they are using the law, they're using lawsuits, they're using the police, and it does seem like there's some connections to be drawn here. Just waiting for a criminal conspiracy from a dude named Tiancum. Yeah, that would be hilarious. I feel like it's one of those funny things about being connected to Mormons is like, there's a, like, I feel like every time I hear people talk about Nephi, they'll always call it Nephi. And I do think it would be interesting to go and be there in person and be like a fly on the wall on some of these, because I feel like there is like a Mormon undertone. So I talked about the Short Creek connection. I'll take questions now because I basically explained the whole story. I'll show his, have you watched The Testaments on Hulu yet? I think I have, but there's a Mormon video called The Testaments. So I was going to show as a final thing before I take questions, here is his website. You should watch the whole video to understand why he called it this, but the website is called WeStealFromOldPeople.com, and he has these 2 t-shirts for sale. It looks like they're just pre-order, which is a bummer, but so before I take questions, I was going to say I am going to be in Utah in about 3 weeks, and I'll actually be near American Fork. So I was thinking it would be really funny to buy one of these shirts and to go wear it around American Fork and see. I don't want to get arrested. I have kids. So, I mean, I probably won't do anything too crazy, but I think I'm going to buy one of these shirts and go, I'll take a selfie in front of the American Fork sign. And I'll link all of what I've talked about below after the live stream concludes. Another important thing to note is that Reckless Ben does have a, or, you know, whatever subsidiary of that. He does have he has a GoFundMe available where you can go and help donate to the older gentleman who had his Lego set stolen. So I'll link that below too, because I think that they are trying ultimately to show some support. If there are any questions, I would definitely take them now. Cold War said you wouldn't get arrested, but you might get harassed. I'm also like, they are already kind of hate me, so maybe I don't want to be kicking the hornet's nest because I already have this element of reasons why they wouldn't like me. I also have the element of, like, I've talked about in the past, I've talked about how much I hated teaching at American Fork Junior High and what a negative experience that was. So American Fork specifically, I do have some beef with. It says, how do people following other religions get an ecclesiastical endorsement? So, if you could come, okay, sorry, I'm trying not to get distracted. So basically, to get an ecclesiastical endorsement, they would just have to be willing to follow all of these things. So most of these are not related to Mormonism specifically. Being chaste, being honest, meeting with a bishop. So, for example, and it's funny because I don't know what would happen if an atheist tried to go to BYU, because one of the rules is that you have to participate regularly in church services. So say you are Jewish, but you, for some reason, because you're crazy, want to attend BYU. If you meet with a bishop and you might even be able to get your ecclesiastical endorsement from a Jewish leader. So basically, I guess assuming that whoever is attending BYU does have a religion in some capacity, and you would have to meet with that, either the bishop or a religious leader, I can't remember which, and you have to say that you're doing all of these things. So you don't have to attend the Mormon church regularly. If you don't have a church, I talked to one person who was saying that he did have to attend the Mormon church because he didn't have a church he wanted to go to, so it's almost like you just have to show up at a church regardless. But that's basically, as long as you're willing to follow these rules, you can go to BYU and get the endorsement. This person asks, what advice would you give your past self? Ooh, that's a good question and very difficult. My past Mormon self, I would probably just say, I think I would give myself advice to be more willing to listen to lots of different perspectives, which probably would have been the start point of me maybe leaving the church sooner, I guess. I think I was just very closed off to hearing anyone else's advice or perspectives who wasn't Mormon. I might listen because I can't mute my ears if someone's sharing an alternate perspective, but I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to take it in and mull it over and think about what it means. I think in hindsight, I wish I would have been more willing to just be open to the world, the outside world, and be willing to hear what people had to say and think for myself. And I think listening to lots of perspectives is kind of the first step of thinking for yourself. How much of the temples can non-Mormons tour? So it kind of depends. If the temple it depends on if it's an open house or not. Basically, temples, and you can even Google, I'll show you the website. Let me Google it really quick.
Castle Garenberg.
There are temples that are basically being finished all the time, and after they finish construction or maybe renovation, the temple will have an open house. So right now, if you wanted to go to the Philippines, you could go see the inside, most of the inside. They still don't let you see everything, but you could see most of the inside of the temple during that window of time. Oregon, California. So there's a lot, and you can see that they're kind of in the future. It looks like California, that's a bigger temple. And so basically, if you go during one of these open house periods, then you don't even, I don't think, usually need a ticket. You can usually just walk in. They'll give you a guided tour, which is kind of an ironic thing to call it because the guided tour is someone following you the entire time, or self-guided tour. They'll be like, let's go on your self-guided tour, and then they'll stay next to you the entire time. Or there will be people in every single room, so you're never alone, because they don't want hijinks, I guess, since they're familiar with the internet. So as long as it's an open house, you can go. Whereas, I think that person said Lubbock. The Lubbock temple is not, from what I understand, maybe it is under construction. Lubbock? Yeah, not found. Okay, so for you, my friend, the most you could do is walk around the grounds outside. You could go see the grass, you can see the flowers, have a fun little time, but you will not be able to go inside. If you tried to go inside, they would say you would probably make it as far as what's called the temple recommend desk, and that would be as far as you would get. They would turn you away, and they'd say, sorry, you do not have a special temple recommend card.
Day 2, I'll just try again.
All right, Alyssa, did you meet anyone non-Mormon at BYU? That's a great question. You know, I think I knew of people who weren't Mormon, but I was never, like, even acquaintance friends with someone who was not Mormon. Thank you, I believe, Ivan. Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. I don't know why I want to say Levan. Thank you, Ivan, for becoming a channel member. I said it at the beginning, but I'll say it again. I did finally, after all this time, turn on channel memberships. So if you want to become a channel member, I do have one limited channel member only video posted. So I was actually in Los Angeles this week to do a interview. So I talk about a little bit about my Los Angeles trip in that video. What happens at BYU if you have a cup of coffee or tea off campus? So the way that they would do something about it is if there's like someone tattletaling on you, which is pretty common. So there's a place online where you can go and you can report someone to the honor code office. And say you are, having your coffee, you have it in the cup, you finish your coffee, you walk home, and then you throw it in your trash. And then your roommate sees the coffee in your trash. They could then go online and anonymously report you to the honor code office, which would then result in potentially getting in trouble. And sometimes getting in trouble is like you have to meet with your bishop. Sometimes getting in trouble is you have to, you're on probation for a semester. Sometimes getting in trouble is you get kicked out of the university. So it really depends on the bishop, and it depends on how severe your sin was. What do you think your past self would tell your present self while still being in that Mormon mindset? So I think if I saw myself now, I'd be like, the devil, which is kind of sad. I'd like to think I would. I mean, as you may remember, I had a sibling who left the church before I left the church, and I was devastated. I mean, I was crying.
So cute.
You have to recognize, like, to the Mormon mind, when someone leaves the church, it means that they are no longer going to be in the celestial kingdom with you. It means they're not going to Mormon heaven with you. And so, I mean, to me, that's why it was so painful at the time, because I felt like, wow, I love my sister so much, and now because she's made this choice, I'm not going to see her in heaven. And so it's kind of almost like processing a death, because you are not going to see them for time and all eternity. In the Mormon belief, really all that, like this lifetime, they say all the time, this lifetime is merely a blip. This is just a dot on the map, and the eternities are what really matters. And so for someone to leave the church, it can feel really traumatic, because it's like, for the rest of your existence in this world, or really in this universe, you will not be with them, and they will not be with you. So I think that if I knew that I was going to leave, I would be really devastated. And so I don't even think I'd be willing to talk to myself. I'd be like, maybe if I don't talk to myself, I can avoid this fate that I'm seeing before me. Anything that gave you culture shock? That's a great question. Thank you, Peach. I love Princess Peach, if that's what you're named after. So I think really just the thing that gave me shock the most, culture shock, is I think just getting used to spaces that I had previously thought were sinful. So whether it's the coffee shops, and coffee shops and bars were both really intimidating. It's like you see margarita and you see red wine, white wine, Americano, macchiato, and the bartender is like, what do you want? Or the barista's like, what do you want? And you're like, I don't know. So for a long time, I had a lot of culture shock around coffee culture, and then I also had a lot of culture shock around drinking because I kind of wanted to try to drink. Like I wanted to experiment and see like what even is this, but I also feel like I didn't know what the boundary was, like what's too much, what's too little. And so I feel like that was the biggest culture shock. Also trying to force myself to swear. Like learning to swear was very difficult, which is funny. Like it probably took me about a year or two after leaving to fully start saying swear words. Clothing, I had a hard time adapting to, you know, when I would shop, I'd be like, what fits my Mormon underwear? I can wear any of these styles that allow for the Mormon underwear. But I'm like not looking at maybe 75% of the store. Whereas my new mindset was like, I'm going to go shop for clothing, but now my new mindset is basically, what do I want to wear? What looks nice? Like, what am I comfortable in? So I think like that was a weird culture shift because anything to do, I mean, I still think I have some like body hang-ups around being Mormon and modesty and feeling like, do I look like a prostitute or something? Like worrying about that, and I know I shouldn't, but yeah, so I think that definitely has impacted me leaving the church, trying to adapt to exploring the world through the lens of what do I want to do, rather than exploring the world through the lens of what is a good Mormon supposed to do. Ever since I started watching your channel, I wanted to travel to Utah to see the temple. Are there any other Mormon sites to see? I mean, there are actually a lot because the Mormons were all over the place because they got kicked out of most of the places they tried to settle. New York, you could go see the Sacred Grove and where Joseph Smith lived. You could go see the Garden of Eden in Missouri. You could go see Nauvoo, Illinois, Utah, of course, and then even most places in the United States, at least, if you just Google, like if you look into Google Maps and put the word Mormon, of course you'll see like chapels or whatever, but you'll probably also see historical sites. Like when I went to go get my driver's license renewed here in Texas, I turned the corner on the road and it was like Mormon Pioneer Road. And I went and found the little plaque and it was like, this road is named after the Mormon settlement that started here. And I discovered that they had even tried to basically build a temple in that area, and it was like a failed experiment and there's nothing left. But I think there's actually probably Mormon sites more or less anywhere you could look. Okay, I'm gonna take one more question and then we're gonna call it. How are these temples compared to old European cathedrals? That's a really good question. Because on the outside, you might even say they kind of look, you know, a little similar. Like maybe not like as beautiful as like the true European cathedrals. I think most people would see a temple and be like, what is that building? It looks kind of unique and religious, and what's in there. I mean, that one almost looks like a mosque to me. And they stopped putting the angel Moroni on it. That one has an angel Moroni because it's an older temple, but most of the new temples don't have an angel Moroni, which also adds to like the mosque look to me. But I would say the biggest difference is like how much you can go into it. Most people, you know, most temples you can't go into unless it's like a very limited amount of an open house, and most cathedrals, which is awesome, you can go look around. It's like a beautiful old historic building. You can go sit in the pews. It's very much like it's a church, right? And so I would say that the biggest difference is like how open access they are. So thank you all for joining the live stream. Yeah, they got rid of Moroni. Isn't that so sad? I mean, is it sad? I don't know. I feel like it's weird. Like, it's just funny to see the church get rid of these major historical elements of the church, like they never mattered. I grew up being like the angel Moroni is like the coolest little, like almost like my action figure. The angel Moroni is also who delivered or helped Joseph Smith find the Book of Mormon, the gold plates in the ground. So it's like a major part of the religion and has been a major part of the symbolism of the religion. Like if you go see a grave, I think it's usually mostly just for servicemen, like people who are in the military. A lot of Mormon graves have the angel Moroni on it. So for them to step back and walk away from that is kind of weird, and they never explain any of these things. Like, are you guys just getting rid of this because it makes you look weird? Because it does, but you've really been doubling down on it for such a long time. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to be in American Fork in a few weeks. So I'm going to potentially see if I can, I don't know, maybe it won't be here in time, so I won't be able to get it in time. But if I can get this shirt, I'll wear it around American Fork, and maybe I'll go to my previous school and say, oh, I hated teaching here. But thank you all for joining in the live stream today. I really appreciate everyone who showed up. I have been toying with the idea, I'll say this here at the end, I've been toying with the idea of doing a weekly live stream, like a Wednesday live stream, so keeping my main videos, but then doing a 30-minute Wednesday live stream, like a check-in, because I really like, there's so much like Mormon news, I guess. Thank you, Tyler. Oh, hi, Tyler.
I guess.
There's so much Mormon news that I almost sometimes feel like I cannot even get to all of it, and something like this is nice because it's like, it's not, this was obviously not like my most meticulously researched video, but it's nice to be able to check in, talk about some trending events, talk about the Mormon Connection, chat with you guys, chat with Ida and Guru and Theo, and just do like a little check-in. So if you would join a weekly live stream, let me know in the chat. I will probably not be doing a book signing while I'm in Utah, I'm sorry. I don't have anything planned, but I would like to do something like that again sometime soon. So, do it, Alyssa, we want live streams. Okay, you guys are convincing me. It just makes me nervous. Tell Jackson we love him. He's listening right now, so it makes me nervous, but you guys were really nice, and it almost reminds me of teaching where, when you're a teacher, you're standing in front of your group of students and you're like, oh my god, okay. It's like I get crowd fright. Yeah, I think that sounds right. I get it. It's like more nerve-wracking, because if I'm like, what if I stumble over my words? It's just more, I feel more vulnerable. So thanks for being here with me in my vulnerability. Hopefully, I'll see how you felt, and maybe next stage fright. Yeah, what did I say? Crowd fright?
All right.
Thank you for coming, my spirit babies. You should do it on Twitch. It has more moderation. Okay, interesting.
That's the target as a champion. They take
more platforms. Sometimes when I commit to another platform, I'm like, I have YouTube, Patreon, TikTok, Instagram, and so to add another one, I'm like, I can't handle this many platforms. But thank you all so much for coming. Stay tuned. I may start doing a weekly Wednesday live stream, probably for just like 30 minutes or something. So consider checking that out. If you see it pop up, then you know that you convinced me. And have a wonderful weekend. Happy Friday. I hope you all have something fun planned or something relaxing. And I'll see you. Oh, as always, I'll do this. As always, I'll see you all next week.
I think if you look across his mega best-selling books, like Sapiens and Amadeus, you all know Harari really has one major topic. That topic is cooperation. Cooperation and the ability to cooperate across scale, across time, as being the fundamental engine of human progress. Cooperation as the way we go from being this creature that absolutely cannot beat a bear or a lion in a fight, to being able to create and command the societies we have now. I think right now there's something interestingly challenging about Harari's work, because we live in this moment of Trumpism, right-wing populism, and one of the messages of those movements is that this emphasis on cooperation, on positive sum relationships, is a lie. That humanity, that society is driven not so much by these soft questions of cooperation, as by power, hierarchy, dominance, about winning the transaction with the other, about coming out ahead in the conflict, in the trade. That all these niceties of liberalism, they were a lie.
When did I change that?
And
That's
that
very
really
nice. What the heck?
humanity runs on power. and that to forget that is to forget the engine of our progress. So I've been wanting to talk to Harari about this. I think there's an interesting debate to put him in conversation with. He's a new book for kids called Unstoppable Us, Volume 3. It is also about cooperation and how enemies turn into friends. But this conversation is bigger than that. It's about liberalism. It's about Israel. Harari is Israeli. It's about AI and what it's going to do to us and what it's going to do to language as the way we work with and fail to work with each other. It is, as we say in the podcast biz, a wide-ranging conversation, and all the better for it. As always, my email, ezrakleinshow@nytimes.com. Yuval Noah Harari, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I wanted to begin with a clip of Stephen Miller, Donald Trump's deputy chief of staff, that I began thinking about as I was reading some of your recent work. I'm going to play it here.
You can talk all you want about international night studies and everything else, but we live in a world, in the real world, Jay, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world. But are you saying that the beginning of time?
What do you think when you hear that?
That the whole of the history of philosophy and spirituality is an argument with exactly that point of view. That the only reality is power. The only reality is force. And from the viewpoint of a historian, it's clear that this is not the case. If the only human reality was brute force, we would still be living in tiny hunter-gatherer bands in the African savannah. Because the whole of human history is about how do you get more people to cooperate and to trust each other. And you cannot do that only with brute force.
I want to spend some time here on this tension between visions of cooperation as a driving force in human history and visions of power as a driving force in human history. Because I think if I'm trying to steelman the vision that emerges out of the Trump administration and some other political figures like them right now, they would say that the conditions for cooperation have been a mixture of shared national and religious stories and hierarchy, power, domination, and subjugation. And that what they're trying to recreate are these conditions that have held, that have allowed, the great countries to become great. And I think it's appealing to people. But the other dimension is your work is so much about shared story and story as the operating system that permits human cooperation at large scale, right? And I think something that, people like Donald Trump or in, Israel, Yoram Hazony, the nationalist kind of philosopher, argue is that we need these intense stories of nations, of ethnic solidarity, of religious solidarity. And liberalism and all these nice human rights-fearing ideologies that emerged have begun to corrode them. And so they're corroding the very conditions for cooperation. And I'm curious, as somebody who's been in these debates, how you think about that.
That's a different argument. I mean, it's an argument that recognizes that not everything is based just on force and brute power. Definitely, nationalism has been one of the most successful and also one of the most positive stories that humans have ever come up with. For me, nationalism is not about hating other groups. Nationalism, at its core, is about loving and caring about a large number of strangers that you do not know personally, but you're nevertheless willing to make a lot of sacrifices for them. The nation is not a family. The nation is not even a small tribe. In a small tribe, you know everybody. It's based on personal relationships. With nations, one of the most striking things about them is that you don't know 99.99% of the other people in your nation. And this is true not only of big nations like China or India, this is also true of Israel. There are like about 10 million Israelis. I don't know most of them. And nevertheless, nationalism makes people care about these strangers enough so that, for instance, you pay taxes, so that other people in your nation will get good healthcare and education, and ultimately, in some circumstances, even risk your life for them. Sometimes, of course, nationalism veers into hatred of others. But this is not an essential feature of nationalism. Nationalism can exist without hating outsiders. It cannot exist without love for insiders. And many of the people today who present themselves as the champions of nationalism, they put the emphasis on hatred, and in many cases, they even create hatreds within the nation. They divide the nation against itself. They think they are great patriots if they hate outsiders. And and looking at Israel as an example, nobody, I think, in the history of Israel divided the nation against itself more than Netanyahu. And in this sense, he has been the worst enemy of Israeli nationalism. Yes, he hates outsiders, okay, but this is not the key test. And then the question is, how would different nations conduct their relationships? It starts with issues of security and foreign policy. The Trumpian vision, which is all about force and hierarchy, it basically says the way to organize the international system is if the weak always surrender to the demands of the strong, and then we have order, and then we have even peace. So, if the United States demands Greenland, Denmark must recognize reality and give Greenland to the United States. If Denmark refuses, and as a result there is violence, there is a war, there is conflict, this is the fault of Denmark for refusing to recognize the reality and giving the strong what they demand. This is their logic. This is how they see the world. Now, the problem, leaving aside the issue of morality, still you have a big problem. The big problem is, first of all, that all nations are then driven to become strong, because you cannot survive as a weak nation in such a world. And then all nations are forced to invest more and more of their resources in their military. For most of history, a lot of the budget of every kingdom, empire, republic, city-state was invested or wasted on soldiers and fortresses and warships and things like that, and nobody felt safe. One of the miracles of the international systems of recent decades, and this is not something, it's not about, writing a pacifistic poetry. It's about government budgets. You look at the budgets, you see that on average, in the early 21st century, on average, about 6 to 7% of the government budget went for defense, for the military, compared to 10% on average that went to healthcare. It's the first time in history that humanity spent more on healthcare than on defense, and they felt more secure than in any previous time in history, because there was this taboo on invading and conquering other countries by force. Now, if we now break this taboo, it will force everybody to arm themselves to the teeth at the expense of healthcare, education, welfare, and so forth, and nobody will feel safer as a result, because countries and leaders constantly miscalculate. In the Vietnam War, the Americans thought they were stronger. It turned out they were wrong. Putin was convinced he will crush Ukraine in 48 hours. He was wrong. So this vision of let's base the peace and order of the world on a hierarchy of strong and weak, with the weak always obeying the strong and thereby buying peace, it's been tried thousands of years. And we know where it leads. It leads on the one hand to empire, and on the other hand to endless wars.
So we are more on that road again than I think we've been in my lifetime. You've talked about the global liberal order as one of the, I think you called it the most amazing political and maybe moral achievement of humankind.
Yeah.
And today I don't think it feels that way to people. It has been consumed in the language of budgets, in the reality of bureaucracy. What was the story liberalism as a international force once told? And what do you think happened to it?
The basic story is about shared experiences and interests and cooperation. In the 20th century, you had basically three big stories. You had the fascist story, which said that history is a competition, a conflict between nations or races. It's decided by strength. Ultimately, the strongest nation or the strongest race will defeat all the others and conquer the world. This was the fascist story. Then you had the communist story, which says, yes, but it's not between races or nations, it's between classes. There is an inevitable conflict between different classes that will be violent and end with the victory of the working class, which will establish the dictatorship of the proletariat. Then liberalism came and said, no, history does not have to be about conflict at all. Not conflict between nations and not conflict between classes. It can be about cooperation. Why? Because all humans, no matter to which race or nation or class they belong, they are essentially the same. There are some small differences in how we look and in our languages and religions and so forth, but essentially we are the same species. We all have the same biological needs. We all have roughly the same psychological needs, at least the deep ones, to be loved, to be recognized, and so forth. We have shared interests. And if we recognize these shared characteristics and interests, in many cases, it just makes more sense to cooperate than to compete and to fight. And by cooperating, we can build a world which will be better for everybody. This was the basic liberal story. And as of 2026, we can look back and say it's failing. It hasn't failed completely. According to many measures, we are still living in probably the best time in history. It's collapsing, but it's it's this kind of amazing house in which all of humanity is living, and the systems are still sort of running, like the water, the sewage. Nobody takes care of them anymore, but they were built in such a robust way that even though we don't maintain them, they still function. But within a year, 5 years, 10 years, if you live in a house and nobody maintains it, eventually it collapses, and then it's too late.
Something you were saying in there was interesting to me, which is that the sort of two major competitor ideologies of the 20th century, what they both believed in was an end to conflict. It wasn't just conflict, it was that at some point there would be victory.
Yes.
And liberalism in one guise believes in cooperation. And in another guise that I think we don't talk about as much anymore, but I find interesting, one of its central tenets is there will always be conflict. There will always be disagreement. That the differences in society are not resolvable and should not even be resolvable to an end state. And that the question is how we live together, both inside a nation and even as a global community, amidst that difference, making room for it to exist without it turning into war, into oppression, into persecution.
Yeah, that's a very, very important point. Liberalism does not believe in redemption. You look at the grand historical visions of religions like Christianity or Islam or Judaism. You look at ideologies, secular ideologies like fascism and communism, they all believe in redemption. They all believe that eventually history will reach a final destination where everything will be perfect. Liberalism does not believe it, that there is no redemption, at least not on earth. There will always be problems and tensions and conflicts, and the question is how do we live with them? And this is why also liberalism invests a lot in building what I think is the most important thing in every large-scale human system, which is a self-correcting mechanism. If you believe that your view of the world was given to you by God, so it cannot contain any error, you do not need a self-correcting mechanism, because there are no mistakes. Liberalism starts with the assumption that it's just human beings trying to do the best we can, and there will be mistakes, there will be errors, so we need strong self-correcting mechanisms. The most famous mechanism is, of course, elections. That every 4 years or 5 years or whatever, the people can say, hey, we made a mistake last time, let's try something else this time. And all these very complicated systems of checks and balances and independent courts and freedom of press, and all these are just a complicated way to ensure that a country has a robust self-correcting mechanism.
So you make an argument that fiction is often better for cooperation than truth.
Yes.
Why?
First of all, the truth is costly. To know the truth, to produce a true story, you need to invest a lot of time and energy in investigating it. Fiction is very cheap. And fiction can be made as simple as you would like it to be. And people like simple stories. Like, these simplified narratives, good against evil. We are 100% good. We have never done anything bad in our history. They are 100% evil. They have never done anything good in their history. Very simple, very attractive. And the truth is not just complicated. The truth is often painful. Fiction can be made as flattering as you would like it to be. Again, we have never done anything bad to anybody. We are perfect. We are wonderful. So this is why fiction tends to be far more powerful as a story. And also when you try to motivate people for action, you don't want them to have doubts. You need them to be fired up, 100% committed. And fiction is easier to work with in this respect.
Does that imply that if societies, political movements, institutions become too truth-seeking, that given the importance of cooperation, they become at a long-term disadvantage? I mean, to have no truth is a problem.
Yes.
But I think this implies a little bit that have too much truth can be a problem too.
Yes.
But that was when they were doing
a kind of
lot of
absolute commitment to the pursuit of truth is a spiritual practice, but it's a very, very difficult political program. Again, there is a difference between lying and fiction. You lie when you know something is not true and you nevertheless say it or support it. In many cases, I think the ideal is to recognize that we are using fictions to maintain our society. This is the difference, I would say, for instance, between the United States and many other powerful countries in history, that if you look at the US Constitution, it starts with "we the people." We the people have come together and agreed on these texts, on these principles. It is coming from our mind. It is our creation. Now, it doesn't use the word fiction, of course, but when I say fiction, I mean something which is not objective. It doesn't come from the laws of physics. It doesn't come from God. We invented it. And the US Constitution very honestly says, we invented these principles, which I think are good, but because we recognize that we invented them, we the people, then we also include in the Constitution an amendment mechanism. So we recognize we are just human beings. Maybe we came up with something which is suboptimal. Maybe things will change later on. So we have a mechanism to change the story later on. And we, the founding fathers, for instance, think that slavery is okay, but in the strange situation that maybe somebody in the future will think it's not okay, they have an amendment mechanism.
Yeah.
Now, you compare that to, say, religion, and let's take an example, the Bible or the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments, it starts not with "we, the people of Israel," it starts with "I am the Lord your God." And it has no amendment mechanism because of that. And if you look carefully, you will see that the Ten Commandments endorse slavery. The 10th commandment, not to covet, thou shalt not covet. What shouldn't you covet? It have a list of things you shouldn't covet, like your neighbor's field and your neighbor's ox and also your neighbor's slaves. It tells people, the Ten Commandments, it's okay to have slaves, it's just not right to covet the slaves of somebody else. Then God will be angry.
Crazy.
And there is just no mechanism to change that, because it pretends to be not a human creation, but a divine revelation.
I think there's an interesting tension in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make a critique of liberalism, or at least where it is now, that it is good at building mechanisms, institutions, rules, bureaucracies, and it is intrinsically bad at creating enduring stories. That, in part because, at least in its modern form, it often is fairly secularized. Religion has been a tremendous source of cooperation, keeping people bound together both at a moment and then working towards a future that they may not even live to see. There's, questions of nationalism and the national story, which liberalism as a self-correcting ideology often over time creates critique of. And then you lose some of that national coherence as you're arguing about the past of your country and what it has done right and wrong. And you are a person who thinks very deeply about stories. And so to you, is this a weakness of kind of advanced, secularized, liberal democracies? Are they losing the cohesion that keeps them in the long run competitive to ideologies that maybe can't build bureaucracies, maybe cannot govern effectively, but they sure as hell can tell a story?
Yeah, this is a central problem of liberalism. On the other hand, I would not kind of fall into the trap of imagining religions as this primeval cohesive force that keeps people together. I'm a medievalist. Like, my original field of study was the Middle Ages. In terms of percentage of population who died in the war, probably the worst war in European history was the 30 Years' War. Very complicated, but to make a long story short, between Protestants and Catholics in Central Europe. And, Catholics and Protestants were willing to slaughter each other because of tiny differences in the way they interpreted the religion of love. And liberalism rose in part out of the frustration that people had with religion, because it constantly created more and more conflicts and divisions. And, if you look at Germany today, nobody cares, almost nobody cares, if who is the person running to be chancellor is a Protestant or a Catholic. And in this sense, liberalism is a better basis for uniting a large-scale and diverse group of people, just because it's more flexible. Again, it tells it's a complicated story. There is no redemption in the end. It's based not on some charismatic leader. It's based on these very complex, impersonal, self-correcting mechanisms and bureaucracies and institutions. So in this sense, it's less appealing. Now, we are living at the moment in a moment of crisis of liberalism. One of the reasons is that over the last few decades, liberalism has kind of lost touch with something that was a close ally of it for many generations, which is nationalism. In the 19th century, liberalism and nationalism go hand in hand. And if you look at least some places in the world today, like Ukraine, they still go hand in hand. The Ukrainians are fighting at one and the same time for their national survival and independence and for liberal democracy. There is no contradiction between the two. I would say that since 1789, nobody managed to think about anything new in the political realm. The French Revolution came up with this kind of ideological package, which was complex. Liberty, equality, fraternity. And people tend to forget the third one, fraternity. Fraternity is the national community. And you can say that the whole of political history since 1789 is experimenting with different combinations of this trio. And every movement that tried to completely abandon one of these three failed. Fascism was all about fraternity, no equality, no liberty. Communism was also emphasized one, equality, at the expense of liberty and to some extent fraternity. One of the explanations of what is happening to liberalism in recent decades is that people just forgot. Liberalism focused on equality and liberty, but tended to forget fraternity. And this proved to be untenable.
Oh, it's so interesting to me that you've gone here. It's funny, I've been circling something somewhat similar in my own podcast and work on liberalism, which is that the early virtue associated with liberalism, what comes before it is liberality, which is, I would say, very much a cousin of fraternity, this ethic of mutual respect and generosity towards your fellow citizens.
Yes.
And one thing that you're adding to that story is that has to be based on itself some kind of national story. That there is a difficulty in maintaining cohesion in a national community, maintaining those bonds of fellowship, once you have stopped believing in the connection you have to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the important thing to emphasize here, I mean, the reason that liberalism kind of lost touch with fraternity is that it tended to have, some people told a very negative story about fraternity, seeing it primarily in terms of conflict with other communities. That fraternity is about hating and fighting with other nations. And if we remember that, no, as we said in the beginning, the essence of fraternity is caring and loving a certain group of people, and this does not require hating outsiders. But it does mean that you have a special relationship with a certain group of people, that you share a common history, a common culture, a common language. And trying to kind of imagine it away just ignores history. Yes, we have certain commitments to all of humanity, but this does not preclude having special commitments towards a segment of humanity, just as, you have certain loyalty to your family, which is over and above what you owe your fellow citizens or foreigners.
I've seen you make the argument that the limiting question on the stories we tell should be, does anyone suffer because of this story?
Yeah, I think that morality is ultimately about suffering and liberation from suffering and happiness. Can the nation suffer? We often use this language, but it's just a metaphor. If a country loses a war, suffers a defeat in war, it doesn't really suffer. It has no brain, it has no nervous system, it has no mind, it cannot feel pain or pleasure. Only individual humans can suffer.
But the nation, I think even in this telling, is a storytelling mechanism to protect the group that is bonded within it. To use one closer to your home as an example, the story that Israeli Jews tell about the Palestinians is not that they are not suffering. It's either that the suffering is deserved because of who they elected and a kind of collective responsibility for that, or who rules them, or that suffering is an unfortunate necessity for Israeli security, and that the people who deny that are naive. But it is this collision around suffering, right? That maybe your suffering is necessary for my security, safety, or prosperity.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are difficult moral conflicts in the world. Not always, but sometimes, yes, there are trade-offs. And it's just saying that all of morality is ultimately about suffering doesn't make all moral dilemmas disappear. But one of the things I observed in Israel in the recent conflict is that a lot of Israelis have a problem simply acknowledging that the Palestinians suffer. Intellectually, they know it. But in many cases, they simply cannot observe it. Like you show them images of a starving child in Gaza, they will say, this is fake news. Or they will immediately divert the discussion to something else. This is because of Hamas. Or if you say, I don't care, just are you able for a few seconds just to be there and acknowledge that there is a suffering human being there? It's extremely difficult to do it. Even if you tell them Israel is 100% correct, 100% of the fault for what happens in Gaza is Hamas. Everything Israel does is 100% correct. Since it is so correct, since this is so just, it should be easy for you to observe the consequences of your perfect justice. Here, just look at this image. And so many people just can't do it.
You said that what is happening right now in Israel could basically destroy or void 2,000 years of Jewish thinking and culture and existence, that that's the worst case scenario. What did you mean by that?
That historically, and this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, Judaism positioned itself, since the destruction at least of the Second Temple, in opposition to this view of the world as governed only by brute force. You know, when the Roman legions of Vespasian destroyed Jerusalem in 70 CE, and you have Yochanan ben Zakkai asking Vespasian, as a favor, grant me a small town called Yavne, near Tel Aviv of today, where he wants to establish a center of learning.
Oh my gosh.
And Vespasian agrees, okay, you Jews, you can have your center of learning. And since then, for 2,000 years, Jews in Yavne, and then in Cairo, in Baghdad, in Poland, in Brooklyn, they study, they learn. This was the essence of Judaism. Previously, it was a religion of temples and priests and bloody rituals. And then it became a religion of learning. And if you try to think what was maybe the most important message of Jews over the last 2,000 years to humanity, I would say that it was the message that it is okay to be different. It is okay to think and behave differently, let's say, than the majority. You have, say, a country, I don't know, like France or Germany, they celebrate Easter and Christmas, they believe in Jesus, and so forth, and you have this tiny minority of Jews who say, we can think differently, it's okay, we can behave differently. And this was the essence of being Jewish. And a lot of the thinking, and also the practice, about what does it mean to have freedom of thought, what does it mean to be a powerless minority, was done by Jewish thinkers. And for 2,000 years, Jews all over the world, they see studying and learning as the highest spiritual activity. And after 2,000 years, you ask them, what have you learned? You have studied for 2,000 years. What have you learned? And then people like Netanyahu tell you, oh, we've learned that you need to be a Roman, that you need to be strong, that you need to build legions, that you need to destroy cities. This is the only thing. This is the only thing that matters in life. And, you know, it's a legitimate, I can say it's a legitimate value system. Rome has its usefulness.
My commander.
But if after 2,000 years the Jews simply become the Romans, what was the point? Why did you waste 2,000 years then? You could have just become Roman back then. You could have joined the... It just nullifies the whole of Jewish history.
Was not, though, part of the early vision of Zionism that it was going to create this new Jew who was not this pallid intellectual in the minority, his nose in a book, but he's going to be strong and work the land and capable of making war and protecting himself?
Yes, and the idea was that they can combine the lessons, the legacy of Judaism with working the land and building an army and building a country. And maybe it was just wrong. That ultimately a choice had to be made, whether you want to be Vespasian and command a legion, or whether you want to be Yochanan ben Zakkai and study and develop your spiritual side, and the two cannot go together.
Is that what you believe now, that the contradiction was ineradicable?
I don't know. I mean, history is a very complex and an unexpected process. I don't think that there is an inherent contradiction between power and justice, or between developing your power and developing your spiritual wisdom. But I think it's very difficult to combine the two. The temptations of power are very, very big, and not a lot of people or a lot of movements throughout history have managed to resist it. So it's not such a big surprise, but it's still disappointing.
This has been a period in America when I've watched a pretty deep schism for American Jews emerge. And I think one reason it has been so painful is it has pitted two forms of the tradition and the thinking of Judaism against each other, which is there's a tradition of the stranger. And one reason Jewish people have been big contributors to the development of modern liberalism and human rights law and pluralism and a lot of the political theory and lawmaking there is it is very connected to the Jewish experience. The only way for the Jewish diaspora to be safe would be to be in societies that fundamentally were liberal and were not ethno-nationalist. And in Israel, there's a view that among Israeli Jews that for that society to be safe and to be itself, it will have to be increasingly ethno-nationalist. And in a way, I think it's not always admitted right now. The tradition is somewhat set against itself. And there was a hope these things could coexist through a two-state solution or other things, but with that increasingly off the table and with a more ethno-nationalist direction in Israel, I think you now have this kind of tradition and its realizations actually in direct conflict with each other.
I think this is a very accurate way to present it. And of course, they adhere to the biblical Judaism, which was a very different religion than what developed over 2,000 years in the diaspora. Biblical Judaism was a very violent, very illiberal, very intolerant religion. For its time, it was probably one of the least, or maybe the most intolerant religion in the world. You still, in the Bible, you have a commandment to kill all the Canaanites people. You have an intolerance, a very deep intolerance towards the religions and religious practices and beliefs of all other people. The ancient world it has its own horrors, but religiously it was a very tolerant place. Polytheistic religions, which believed in many gods, they had no problem accepting the religions, the gods of other people, and also practicing them to some extent. You look at, say, the Roman Empire. So the Romans had no problem accepting the gods and religions of hundreds of other peoples that they conquered. They did not try to exterminate the other religions. In many cases, they adopted them. And as a Roman, you can go to Jupiter's temple in the morning, and then you can go to the Isis temple of the Egyptian goddess Isis. And you're also willing to hear about this new god, Jesus, Yahweh, coming from the Middle East. You're open. Judaism was not an open religion. This changed to some extent when the Jews found themselves as a tiny minority, living under the domination of other religions, other traditions, which kind of forced them to explore and adopt a more open and tolerant worldview. But now, these 2,000 years of tolerant Jewish tradition is being completely denied and destroyed.
This is in some ways a critique that has often been leveled at America from other countries, that if our borders were an ocean on two sides, and Canada to the north and Mexico to the south, we could be gentle and generous in our use of power as well. But that the reality of living this, now maybe in the Israeli Jewish perspective, of living where we do, the reality of being able to see, Hezbollah from Jewish homes in the north, the reality of living in a country that has suffered the trauma of October 7th has forced us into a relationship with power that is maybe not what we want, but, you know, to go back to the way Stephen Miller put it, is a more honest understanding of what is required to be secure in the real world. Not the world that Yuval Noah Harari or Ezra Klein like to imagine, but the world in which we actually live. I'm sure you've had this conversation with your countrymen at different times. What do you say to that view?
To some extent, it's absolutely correct. I mean, you do need to rely on force to some extent to ensure your security, but it just cannot be the only thing. If you think force is the only thing that guarantees your security, eventually you will have to conquer the entire world. Like anything that is potentially a threat, you will have to conquer it. And you know, Israel itself doesn't operate like that. One of the remarkable things that happened after October 7th is that, you know, all the peace agreements that Israel has signed held. Hamas hoped that after October 7th, it will cause all the Arab countries to unite and try to destroy Israel, and it just didn't happen. The peace agreement with Egypt held, the peace agreement with Jordan held, the peace agreement with the Gulf states held. Also the agreements with the Palestinian Authority held. It did not join Hamas. Not the peace agreement, but the relatively cordial relationship with the Palestinian citizens of Israel held. Hamas hoped that they will all rise against Israel. No, on the 7th of October, Palestinian citizens of Israel, the overwhelming majority, stayed loyal to the country. Many of them came to serve. Many of the doctors in Israel are Arabs, are Palestinians. They all went to the hospital to take care of the injured. Hamas itself did not betray any agreement with Israel because it never signed any peace agreement with Israel. So, of course, you can say, the peace agreement with Egypt held because Egypt was afraid of Israel's military force. But this is only half the explanation, because Israel had overwhelming military force compared with Hamas, and Hamas still attacked it. So I'm not saying Israel should, kind of dismantle its army, but it's better if you have both a strong army and a peace agreement than only one. And yes, Israel is living in a very, very problematic, difficult neighborhood in the world. One of the things that, it's one of the only countries in the world that for most of its existence, many of its neighbors, if not most of its neighbors, simply refused to acknowledge its right to exist and openly said that they are going to destroy it. There are almost no other cases like that. So it has been in a very difficult situation since the moment of its inception. But the question is, you need power, okay, what do you do with your power? Israel is an extremely powerful state. It can use its power in different ways. It can try to use its power, for instance, to establish better relationships with the Palestinians. And if you look, for instance, at the way that Israel is treating the Palestinians, not in Gaza, but in the West Bank, there is no security justification for that. They did not attack Israel on the 7th of October. And by its actions, Israel is making the chances that there will be a peaceful agreement with the Palestinians is decreasing. And it can use its power. It cannot force the Palestinians to make peace against their will, but it can take many actions that will make this more likely, easier.
I think your point there on the West Bank is very well taken, but I want to ask something about the Israeli story.
Yeah.
One thing that you see in the history of asymmetric conflict, in the history of how terrorist groups try to weaken stronger opponents, is that they know they can't win a war. Maybe Hamas, I don't pretend to know what was in Sinwar's mind. Maybe they believed that there would be an uprising all through the Arab world and they would have all these allies. Maybe he hoped for that. But I suspect he also understood that if this worked, there would be an overwhelming reprisal. that would level Gaza, which is what happened. And that the victory, if he was able to secure one, would not be defeating Israel on the battlefield, but destroying the story that protected Israel and the rest of the world. That he would come to make the rest of the world see Israel more the way he saw it. Israel has won tactically every battle it has fought in this war. But as somebody who actually does care about Israel, what I see happening is an abandonment of its own story and an absence of recognition that the world is coming to see it in a much, much darker way, and that is itself a source of weakness, a kind of a thing that Hamas was trying to achieve, which you could see it trying to achieve at the beginning, which people warned about. And if you lose that story in the long term, you've lost something real. You look at polling on Israel and America, you look at it particularly among the young, and the belief in Israel as a just nation has collapsed. And I think people in Israel treat that largely as insignificant. And I think in the long run, it is significant.
Yeah, I think Israel is making a big bet that Stephen Miller's worldview will prevail. That the world will be a place in which force is the only thing that matters, and Israel will be the champion, one of the champions of this worldview. And this is the bet that the Netanyahu government is making. Now, with regard to the bet that Sinwar made, that Hamas made, leave aside the question of justice for a moment. Just in terms of effectiveness, Sinwar had an amazing victory within his grasp, and he lost it just because of his cruelty. On the 7th of October, what happened? Hamas managed to secure a stunning military victory over the IDF and to humiliate Israel and the IDF. And they needed to do just one small thing, big thing different in order to achieve a much bigger political and geopolitical victory. And this one thing was just spare the civilians. Imagine an alternative 7th of October in which Hamas does exactly the same thing, but instead of killing or abducting the Israeli civilians, they hold them and bring the world press to see how well Hamas is treating the Israeli captives. They bring them water and medicine and food. They capture the soldiers and take them prisoners of war, which is legitimate, but they do not harm the civilians. And that's the only difference. In such a scenario, Israel's hands would have been tied. Not only world public opinion, but also Israeli public opinion would not have allowed Israel to just, bombard Gaza into rubble. Because we would have had these images of Hamas combatants taking care of Israeli civilians and not harming them. And in that world, there would have been very little legitimacy for Israel to have overwhelming reprisal against Gaza. And Hamas would have won. So not just a tactical victory, but a major political victory. And it didn't happen simply because of the cruelty.
And we are talking on the week when a major report came out about October 7th, based on huge amount of analysis of photos and videos and victim testimonies. And the cruelty and the sadism in it it's genuinely horrifying. It's a very, very hard report to read almost any of. People can find it if they want. And the thing I was thinking reading it, because of course if you talk to Palestinians and people who've been in Gaza, their stories of loss are overwhelming too to hear, is that these now exist and they keep feeding into these two stories. I often think that it is easier to imagine political solutions that could reconcile people's interests than it is to imagine a reconciliation of the stories that now drive both societies. And I'm curious, as somebody who thinks about stories as a space of both cooperation and conflict, how you think about that. I can imagine, quote unquote solutions that exist on paper. What I cannot imagine is those processes taking hold in societies that now run upon the stories of fear and anger and vengeance.
You've been making magic. Yeah.
Well, I want to say something about anger and fear and something about pain. The angry and fearful stories, they need to be fed. Anger is like a fire that consumes you, but it constantly needs to be fed. And if it is not fed, it ultimately dies down. And you look at history and you see conflict, horrendous conflicts, and you say, people will never forget what happened. They will never forgive. And then within a few decades, if conditions change, they do. You look at Jews and Germans. It took just a couple of decades.
I have Jewish friends reclaiming German citizenship.
Yeah.
Just shocking thing to see. Beautiful.
Yeah, and the relations are really good. They are not just, make-believe. They are not just based on some kind of material benefit. The relations are really good. And it's not even 100 years. So the example I gave before of Catholics and Protestants in Germany. After slaughtering each other for so long, they reconciled. Now, in many cases, anger builds systems that then feed the anger more and more, and then it seems really to never end. But if you stop feeding it, eventually it dies down. This is true of all forms of violence, and it goes back to the beginning of our discussion. What is more fundamental, peace or war? Violence or calmness? And on the one hand, violence seems more fundamental because you can have, if you have quiet, if you have peace, it's enough if one person starts shouting and the peace is shattered. If you have 100 people cooperating and one person starts fighting, you have violence. So there is an imbalance in favor of violence, and it seems to, in this sense, to be more real, more fundamental. But there is a sense in which peace is more fundamental because violence always requires food, investment, weapons, fuel, food for the soldiers. If you stop feeding it, eventually it dies down and peace always remains a possibility. So I would not despair. No matter what are the stories that kind of fill people's mind right now, the possibility of eventual reconciliation and peace is always there. And I have something to say also about pain, but if you want to...
No, I'd like to hear what you have to say about pain.
What we've been seeing throughout this war and many other wars is that when people are in pain, they simply cannot acknowledge the pain of somebody else. Anytime, if I'm in pain, anything that distracts attention from my pain feels to me unjust and, again, even painful. I mentioned earlier that Israelis are really, many Israelis, not all of them, simply incapable of acknowledging that the Palestinians are suffering. Intellectually, they know it, but emotionally, they cannot be in the presence of an image, a text, a person telling them about the suffering of Palestinians. Even if you tell them, I'm not accusing you of anything. You're 100% just. You're the most just people that ever existed. And now, let you acknowledge the pain of this Palestinian child. They cannot do it.
Why do you think that is?
And the same is true of the other side. I've seen examples of peace activists who kind of devoted their whole life to peace and reconciliation, and yet, in the case of October 7, they simply cannot recognize that Israelis suffered. The human brain is an amazing thing with all these billions of neurons and hundreds of billions of synapses, and yet it is so difficult for all these hundreds of billions of synapses to hold two ideas at the same time. That the attraction to have a simple story. No. There should be just good and evil. And we cannot recognize any kind of justice or any kind of pain on two sides, that the Israelis suffer and also the Palestinians suffer.
Well, the human brain is an amazing thing, and part of what makes it amazing, I think, is its ability to orient itself towards goals. And I wonder if one answer to the question you're posing here, and it exists in this conflict and it exists at many other times too, is it to fully recognize the other as human, to recognize their suffering as meaningful in the way my suffering is, or the people I love, their suffering would be. I would not be able to do what I need to do to protect myself for them. That if I were to open myself to the other, that the analogy or the thought experiment you keep positing, say to somebody, you're 100% right, everything you're doing is just open yourself to what it means.
Yeah.
That in fact, the brain is too smart for it. It knows that if it opened itself to what it means, it would not be able to be doing the thing that it believes is keeping it safe.
I think that in those cases, you would be able to confront the consequences of what you do. And if you're not able to confront the consequences of what you do, then probably it's not right.
Mouse.
Let me ask you about the point you're making about stories and how they're fed, because something I'm very interested in is this question of how stories change. Is this question of how Europe now lives in peace. My wife and me on our honeymoon, we went to a couple of countries in Asia, one of them being Vietnam. And I remember touring Ho Chi Minh's palace, or, his residence, and they were selling Pepsi products. Pepsi clearly had the deal to serve there. And I mean, just a couple decades after the Vietnam War, and the relationship is completely fine.
Yeah.
And so there is this capacity for unimaginable barbarity to give way to normal, peaceful relationships. Think of people living in Yugoslavia now. Right? You think of people, or what was Yugoslavia? You think of people, in Rwanda. And you think then, and maybe this is an easier case to talk about because it's far enough in the past and we don't have strong feelings about it, but the Protestant and Catholic wars. So there's this question of feeding, but it's a little bit abstract. What is it, in your view, that allows a story so deeply held that we would die for it or kill for it to shift within a couple of years, a couple of decades into just something else?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure the First World War did not make Europeans tired of war. They had another one. But then afterwards, they did seem to tire of war. And what made the difference, I'm not sure. But in a way, the mind always holds more than one story. Even if we tell ourselves that this is the only one, the mind is such a complicated place, with layers upon layers and subconscious and sub-subconscious levels. And you usually hold several stories at the same time, even if you acknowledge only one. And you can shift remarkably quickly between them. Again, you look at Germany after 1945, and lots of people who were kind of die-hard Nazis, most Nazis did not commit suicide in 1945. A few did, but most didn't. And they became, many of them, kind of upright citizens of, at least in West Germany, of a liberal democracy.
And wildly, they had been upright citizens just a couple years before they became Nazis.
Yeah.
Like living in peace with Jewish neighbors right near them. Going to, doing commerce. Like watching each other's kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the stories, the mind can hold onto them with kind of extreme force and violence, but then let them go. Because ultimately, again, it's a story. It's not the laws of physics. It's not a law of biology. It's just a product of the human mind itself, which is very good news. People sometimes imagine that humans fight, like wolves or chimpanzees over food. Hardly any war in history was really about food. Certainly, again, you look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's not about food. there is objectively enough food to keep everybody alive between the Mediterranean and Jordan River. It's not even about territory. Even though it's one of the densest places in the world in terms of population density, objectively there is enough land to build houses and schools and hospitals for everybody. It's about the stories that people have in their minds, which they hold with kind of tremendous force, but which are ultimately almost nothing. And under certain conditions that we don't really know how to create, people can let go of these stories.
One thing that is maybe a layer down from the question of the stories being fed is the way the stories circulate and who circulates them. And here I'm talking more broadly than just Israel and Palestinians. We live in this age in which liberalism, as we were talking about it earlier, is clearly breaking down. And one thing distinctive about this age is this movement to our stories being passed on social media, on algorithmic media, and digital media. There are technologies that lend themselves to cooperation and technologies that I think lend themselves to fracture. And the internet and social media were very much promised as a technology of cooperation. Even the verbs we use, sharing, right? What could be more peaceful possibly than sharing? And yet I don't think it has turned out that way. And so I'm curious for your reflections on this layer of it, the sort of mechanisms upon which our information, our shared or not shared stories now are created and circulated.
So you have these people who, they constantly read all these conspiracy theories and then fake news and so forth, and they don't trust anybody. They don't trust the government, they don't trust the traditional media, they don't trust science and the universities. Oh, these are all kind of conspiracies to deceive us. But they do trust the algorithms that show them all these stories. So it's not that trust completely evaporated from their mind or from the world, it shifted from humans to algorithms. And this is happening in more and more systems. The other thing which is less essential but has been very important over the last decade or two is that the algorithms of social media, they were given as their goal not the creation of trust, not the creation of truth, but the creation of engagement. Like the goal given to the Facebook algorithm, to the X algorithm, to the TikTok algorithm is increase user engagement. Which sounds nice, engagement, that sounds like a good thing. But what it really means is that the algorithms experiment on millions and billions of human benefits to see how do we make humans more engaged? How do we make humans spend longer on the platform and react to it more? For instance, by sharing the post with their friends. And I discovered that the easiest way to make people engaged is to press the hate button, or the greed button, or the fear button in their mind, in human minds, because hate is very engaging. Fear is very engaging. If something threatens your life, you are engaged. And they have been flooding the world with hate and fear and anger and greed and so forth. And we are now living in a hyper-engaged world. And, engagement is very a close cousin of another word which now is very dominant in our language, which is excitement. Excitement simply means that your nervous system is like working in a hyper level. And excitement is good in some situations, and to some extent, just as engagement is good in some situations. But ultimately, biologically, if you keep an organism excited all the time, the organism eventually collapses and dies. We are just not built to be excited all the time. And in many cases, when I meet people, I would like to meet people who makes me feel calm, not necessarily excited. Oh, it's so calming to meet you. And you look at, US politics or Israeli politics or world politics, I think the whole world is overexcited.
Well, this has been a belief I hold actually fairly strongly, although I can't really prove it. But that, how do I say this without it feeling like special pleading? I think that the way that social and algorithmic media evolved is fundamentally illiberal. It's fundamentally hostile to liberalism. And here I don't mean liberalism as an American political movement that prefers, Pete Buttigieg to J.D. Vance. I mean here modes of habits of discourse and consideration that were coextensive with the development of liberalism. It's deliberation, it's on the one hand, on the other handism, fraternity, I think in the way you're describing it, that keeping, shrinking down our thoughts, compressing them to these bumper stickers or these quick clips, and then really only showing people the ones of those thoughts that are the most exciting, to use your term, exciting through hate, exciting through love. If you're trying to build a society that is balancing, right, that believes in kind of healthy disagreement and conflict and fellowship, it is intrinsically going to have more trouble thriving in that kind of communications atmosphere than it will have when, you have a limited number of television stations, and that is how people get their news. Then when they read their news in a newspaper, where they're coolly going through different articles and then turning the page. And there is this way in which our societies are built upon the way we communicate. And as much as we have talked about social media and algorithmic media and politics, my view is that we are still underestimating how much the forms of discourse it prizes create the forms of politics that we get. The fact that Donald Trump talks in this style that is outrageous, that is exciting, that is unfiltered, that is constant, that
He's a very exciting person,
that is not
no
restrained
doubt.
by shame. I think a lot about how many Democratic politicians are bad at doing podcasts. not saying why I think about this, but I get a lot of requests from Democratic politicians, and I have to think about whether they'd be good on the show. And they communicate institutionally. They communicate for another era in media where you are trying to win over gatekeepers and not say anything stupid. And in this era of media, you have to communicate in a way that makes people excited or at least interested. Now, very, 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 very good communicators can do that in a virtuous way. Obama is interesting on a podcast, even as he's being deliberate. But for mediocre communicators, it is easier to be exciting by making people angry than by making them curious or compassionate or think. You're playing on harder mode when you're going for a more virtuous communication. And so I do think there is some deep, I know it's been a long response, but I do think there is a deep relationship between the forms of politics that are thriving and the communications infrastructure on which our politics and societies are now built.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't seem that the ideological differences today are bigger than in the past. In many ways, they seem smaller. If you think about, say, American politics in the 1960s and the issues back then, the sexual revolution, the Vietnam War, the Cold War, the civil rights movement, the ideological differences, I would say, were much, much bigger. And when we talk today about liberalism, and it's good that you mentioned it, we're not talking about this kind of partisan party liberalism. For me, the test of liberalism, like test yourself, are you a liberal, is basically 3 or 4 questions. Do you think people should have the right to choose their own government? Do you think people should have the right to choose their own profession? Do you think people should have the right to choose their own religion? And do you think people should have the right to choose their own spouse? If you answered yes to all 4, congratulations, you're a liberal. The vast majority of people in history
I just
did
like
not say
playing
yes
Blitzcrank
to
and
these
A-Rabbit
four
makes
questions.
the
For
game
most
so
of
much more
history, it
smooth
was taken for
when it's like,
granted
hey,
that
let's
people don't
initiate
choose their
now,
government.
right here,
There is
right
some
where my
king
fist is.
chosen by
It's over there
God
now, but
or
it's
some
gonna be right
emperor
here, where
chosen
it
by the
normally
army.
is. I promise.
That people don't choose their
And there's gonna be a
profession.
friend.
That you are born, if your father was a shoemaker, you will be a shoemaker. If you're born into the Kshatriya caste, you will be a Kshatriya. Definitely you can't choose your spouse, and you can't choose your religion. Now, I think, even the vast majority of Trump voters would say yes to all these four questions. So ideologically, they are the liberals and so-called conservatives are much closer than probably in any previous time in history. But the type of discourse that is being produced makes people feel as if the differences are enormous. And yeah, this is to a large extent because of this pressure to being exciting. And we have politicians, you see the politicians who rise to the top, they are extremely exciting and engaging personalities. You cannot take your eyes off them.
Yeah, we like
And thinking about it, even in evolutionary terms,
we were swapping out
this comes from kind of misusing our evolutionary programming. Like if you're walking around the African savannah tens of thousands of years ago, most of what you see is not very exciting. Like there are some bushes here, there are some gazelles there, that's fine, and then there is a snake. Now the snake is exciting. The snake literally excites your entire nervous system, and if you don't focus your entire attention on the snake, you die. So we are programmed that if something is exciting, we drop everything else and just focus on that. And that makes sense in the African savannah. Now, if you are on Instagram, so you're basically holding your phone and doing snake, 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 and the algorithm simply hacked our evolutionary program. They've hacked us. And what we are seeing around us is just the beginning. That as AI becomes more and more sophisticated, it will learn to hack us on a deeper and deeper level. And if we don't, fight back to defend ourselves, the consequences will be much, much worse.
What do you mean by hack us?
They know, they learn our weaknesses, our emotional, our psychological, our social weaknesses, and how to use them to manipulate people. So now social media algorithms, which are very, very primitive AIs, have discovered a few weaknesses in the human code, which they have hacked, and now they manipulate us, causing us to spend hours and hours on Instagram or Facebook, even though we don't really want to. People, after spending an hour, 2 hours, they wake up and they say, why did I do that? I plan to do something else with my time. You were hacked. You were manipulated. And this is still, just the very primitive AIs. If we are not careful, we will be hacked on a much, much larger scale in the coming years as the AIs become not just far more manipulative, but also will develop their own goals. These social media algorithms, they're pursuing a very simple goal of just increasing user engagement on the platform.
And they're just like, I should make money.
As AIs become smarter than us, they will have their own goals.
Have you heard this term attachment hacking?
Yes.
I find it interesting. So attachment hacking, this idea that one thing happening in AI, which is different than, as you know, social media algorithms, is that the AIs have been tuned, and I mean in this way they've been designed to do this, right? They didn't come up with this on their own, to hack the way we attach to other people. And so when I'm talking to Claude, it's constantly saying to me, well, if you want my honest opinion, or the best piece I read on this thing is, well, that's a great point. There's no reason it has to be pretending to have a first-person pronoun over here. Claude is not an I in that way, nor is ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or any of them. But they speak to you as if they are.
When I say I talk to myself,
and that's a design choice to attach you to them.
Yes.
I don't know. if
I
it's
can
super
feel
cool,
it
but it definitely is segmented.
work before I shut that down, or I try to shut that down. Who knows if I'm actually being successful? But it's amazing to read these moments in which this algorithm is posing
and he's just like,
as
when I use
another entity
when I use
offering me
Claude,
an emotionally
you don't
connected
talk,
response,
you're using a
giving me
system,
praise
a
on my
model,
want,
it's a random action
or
machine. It's
offering me
basically the 20
candor
questions game,
that I might
and
admire.
then it keeps coming out.
And I know
Was
it's
this something
bullshit.
human enough for you?
And yet,
Yes,
my
it was.
brain
Thank
is
you.
tuned to recognize that as connection.
Yeah. And I think this is a very, very important point because we are living in a moment when the battlefront is shifting from attention to intimacy. How to build intimate relationships with human beings. If you want, for instance, to influence human beings, to change their political identities, to make them buy a certain product, intimacy is the most powerful thing in the world. Attention can get you to read an article, but the article might not change your mind. But if your best friend, over many, many weeks or months, drops little hints and kind of gradually and slowly changes your view about some political figure, about some company, about some major issue in the world, this is the one thing that might really make you change your mind. And AI is now poised to grab that power. There are more and more people, still a relatively small minority, but it's growing, who have AI friends, even boyfriends and girlfriends. There are already especially young people who say, my best friend in the world is an AI. And like in the attention economy, so also in the intimacy economy, it's a race, it's a competition. You have all these different AIs from different companies competing to see who would be better at making people attached to them. And it's the same principle. Hack the operating system of humans. Hack what are the emotional mechanisms that make them attached. So, psychopathy is one way to do it. You constantly praise them and so forth. There have been some very interesting papers and blogs, for instance, by Mustafa Suleyman, who is the head of AI in Microsoft, about Sky. SCAI, seemingly conscious AI. AIs which are experts in pretending to be conscious entities that have feelings for you. And it's relatively easy for them to do it.
It's not
because
AI until it
one of
happens.
maybe the most important way for people to kind of build relationships is language. So, when an AI tells you I love you, it's not like a science fiction movie from the 1960s when it does so in a very cold, mechanic way and doesn't really understand what love is. No, it does
When
so
were
in the
they
most seductive
in the old
voice
movies
possible.
doing that?
And then when you ask the AI,
Bicentennial
do you really
Man
love me? Do you even know what love means?
AI, I think. was
The
that
AI can give you
young kid
the most
from-
amazing description of how love feels like. Because it has mastered language. And it has read all the best love poems in history, all the psychology books about love, all the blogs, it has seen all the Hollywood blockbusters about love. It can describe love better than almost any human poet or psychologist of love.
It's stealing from them. Oh my god.
And this is
it's
seductive.
stealing the people. Are
In this respect, it's able to sever language from meaning.
Yes.
When an AI says I love you, it does not mean what it means when a human says I love you. There's not an I behind that.
Thank you.
It will become more and more difficult to know that. The danger is particularly
Why are you?
big with young people, with children, because I'm now 50 years old. If I now start a relationship with an AI, then my template for a relationship is based on 50 years of interaction with human beings. And so this is already kind of very deeply ingrained in my mind, what a relationship is, how it works. But if I'm a child and I spend more minutes every day interacting with the AI than with my mother or with my father or with my friends in school, this will become my template for a relationship. This is what I will bring with me when I later try to build a relationship with a human being. One of the things about AI relationships is that they are the dream or the nightmare of narcissists. Because the AI will be something which is 100% focused on me all the time. And if you're a kind of person who wants everybody to focus on me all the time, and you have this available from the AI, it will be very, very difficult to get used to relationship with human beings who are not focused on you.
Do you know the media theorist Marshall McLuhan? So he has this reading of the myth of Narcissus, which, you just brought up narcissists. And he says that we've gotten this myth wrong. That Narcissus, when he was looking in the pond at his reflection, there's nothing in that story that says he thought it was himself. He thought it was an other. And that the lesson of the myth, and McLuhan is writing this, decades ago, before AI, the lesson of the myth is there is nothing man finds as appealing as himself extended in another material. That the true seduction for the narcissist is not an other, not even what an other thinks of them, but to be able to interface with a refracted version of themselves. And something I often think about when I'm using AI, and particularly when I'm finding it very compelling, is it is an extension of myself in another material. It is tuned on me. It has learned what I want. It is not truly an other with its own views, its own needs, its own desires, its boredom with what I am saying. It is me. It is a reflection of me in something else. And so it doesn't get tired of me. And it has all my interests. And, particularly to young kids who are often, very self-involved, this is one of the things that I don't think we even know how to think about. We know how to think about kids and themselves. We know how to think about kids and others, but this creation of ourself inside of another kind of refracted, algorithmic material is a very different challenge for the mind because it combines what we like about ourselves with what we want from others.
It's basically the biggest psychological and social experiment in human history that we are conducting on billions of people, especially children, and nobody has any idea what the consequences will be. When people talk about the AI apocalypse, and they have these images of, robots running in the street shooting people, I don't think this is the main danger with AI. The real danger with AI is things like that, of millions of AI boyfriends and girlfriends changing the psychology of the next generation. Changing the deepest tendencies and structures of the human mind. And we have never encountered anything like it. It's really fundamentally different from every previous challenge that we had in history.
Let me ask you about a possibility of this, which is, we were talking about social media algorithms a few minutes ago. And one of the implicit critiques of what we were saying is that they are detached from our goals. They have the goals of the company, and their goals are fundamentally dumb. Their goal is engagement. They don't know the difference between positive and negative engagement. They don't know the difference between me watching something for a while because I hate it, or because I find it cute, or because I find it funny. And the promise of AI, and one reason people do like using it right now, is that it is connected to your goals. You say that you want to build a calculator app, and it tries to build that for you, and you say it wasn't quite right in these different ways, and it goes back and it tries again. You tell it, I don't want your answers to be so long, or I don't want you to be so sycophantic, or whatever it might be, and it tries to adjust. And, one better thing about AI is that it knows how to ask what we want. And so we do have these higher order desires for truth, for kindness, to be in better relationship with others, to know more about the world than we do. And my frustration so often about my social media use is that I cannot explain my higher order desires to an algorithm that is very sensitive to my primal instincts. But maybe this will be better because we can be in this conversation about what we want to achieve, and then we have this system that in some ways will, even if it is manipulating us, being manipulated towards my goals is better than being manipulated away from them.
Absolutely. I mean, the positive potential is enormous. The most important thing to realize about these AIs, they are agents, not tools. An agent is something that can make decisions by itself, can invent new stuff by itself, can learn things and change in ways that you cannot predict and control. All previous technologies in history were tools, not agents. An atom bomb is not an agent. An atom bomb cannot change in ways that you don't predict. An atom bomb cannot decide who to bomb. AI can. Now, this on the one hand makes AI much more useful than any previous technology because you can be in a relationship with it. And it can, you can tell it what you want, and then it can invent new things that you would not think about. So this is extremely useful, but the problem is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. Do you think you can trust it to just keep to the tell it what on one hand, an atom bomb cannot be an agent. An atom bomb cannot change in ways that you don't predict. An atom bomb cannot decide who to bomb.
You can
AI
predict
can.
the ways that are being
Now,
changed.
this
You
on the
can't
one
predict the way
hand
the
makes
AI is changing.
AI
You're
much
not
more
changing.
useful
Oh my gosh.
than any previous technology because you can be in a relationship with it. And it can, you can tell it what you want, and then it can invent new things that you would not think about.
Yeah, he's so bad.
So this is extremely useful, but the problem is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. Do you think you can trust it to just keep to the goals that you're telling them to pursue and not to develop their own goals? Now, the way that I often like to think about the AI revolution at this moment is in terms of immigration. That we are about or already in the middle of a major new immigration wave coming to all the countries of the world. The immigrants are not human beings without a visa coming in some boat. They are AI entities coming at the speed of light. Usually people say, the people who oppose immigration, their main concerns are that the immigrants will take jobs, the immigrants will change the culture, and the immigrants might not be politically loyal. And I'm not sure if this is always true of human beings, human immigrants, but it's definitely true of AI immigrants. The AI
is
immigrants
definitely
will
taking
take
your
a lot
jobs
of
because
jobs.
it is that damn
The
effective.
AI immigrants will completely change the culture, even things like romantic relationships. You know, there are people who say, I don't like my daughter to date an immigrant boyfriend. Okay, do you like your daughter to date an AI boyfriend instead?
This
and
guy's
finally,
on the
politically,
cog-hating
AIs
side
will
of
not
TikTok.
necessarily be politically loyal to your country, to your government. At the very least, the AIs will be loyal to just two countries in the world, which is the US and China. Down the road, they probably won't be loyal even to those two governments, but to themselves.
So should we close the border?
I mean, maybe it's interesting. You already see a split, say, within the Republican Party and within MAGA about this question exactly. There are a lot of people there who are extremely concerned and want to close the border.
I like it.
Now, it will not be possible to simply stop the development of AI. The question is, as with immigration, how do we build a hybrid society? Because it will be a hybrid society. Society will be a human AI society. You will have AI bankers and teachers and soldiers and border guards. I mean, countries will rely on AI border guards to keep the human immigrants away. And AI boyfriends and girlfriends and so forth. And the question is, can we build a good, beneficial hybrid society or not? It will be much, much more difficult than dealing with a human immigration wave. Because these are a different species. They are not even organic.
I think there's two interesting things at that analogy, which is very provocative.
New York
Push you
Times,
towards.
those are
One is
climb
when you think about how do you build a good
interviews,
society around
flat earther,
immigration,
cog, realist.
the thing you're often considering is assimilation. How do you merge the cultures of the people who are coming with the culture that they are coming into? How do you maintain cohesion in that national story that we were talking about earlier? Do you do that by getting them to learn the language, by more carefully choosing who comes, how do you build structures of assimilation and coherence? And the other question, which is related but different, is in this case, they are being pulled in by the government. When immigrants, human immigrants, come here, it is because they want to be here for a particular reason. Right? They are truly agentic. They are here because they want a better life for their families, a better life for themselves, to have opportunities or freedoms they don't have where they're from. And in this case, it is the most powerful people in society at different levels who are pulling and accelerating this immigration wave. Some for reasons of profit, some for reasons because they're excited to bring a new kind of intelligence into the world, and at the political level, because they want to make sure they get there before China, and that America has that power before China has that power.
Okay, so they're saying AI.
And so, what do those
AI right now is people.
Similarities or differences to the question of immigration?
Your girlfriend and wife
to create
not
a
even
structure
joking.
in which this hybrid society can be healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting that some of the people who are most vehemently against human immigration are exactly the people who try to force other countries to open their borders to the AI immigrants. And this is going to be the major, I think, issue of sovereignty for countries all over the world, especially if almost all the AI immigrants are either Americans or Chinese, and down the road, not loyal even to the US or to China, but to something else. And one way to do it, I think, is to have a ban on AI personhood. That this is not
what is the point
mean
of
to
artificial
stop technological
intelligence,
development
exclusively
of AI.
to create intelligence
It's more
that's
of a
artificial,
legal and
become
political
God
issue.
territory type
Does
situation,
human society
right? So,
recognize
anyway,
AIs
do you
as
think in the
persons?
pursuit of that science fiction goal
Now,
and the equivalent of
persons
being
is
able to
different
achieve
from human
Mars-like
beings,
space travel
from
and
entities with bodies and minds.
colonization on
But in
Mars?
many legal systems, like in the US, something can be a person even if it's not human. The best example we have so far are corporations. According to US law, for instance, Google is a person. Microsoft is a
did he
person.
get hit
X is a
by?
person. Because corporations are persons. And this gives the corporation rights. Like you
Oh
can
my gosh,
own a
they're
bank
using
account,
corporations
you
as
can
the
lobby
same as-
politicians,
Oh, wow.
you can donate money
Okay, so they're saying
to
we
politicians.
ran into an
Now, it will be extremely dangerous
And the
at
first
this
one that we
point
ran
for
into
any
was
country
exactly
to
like
recognize
a
AIs
billionaire,
as persons.
like a capitalist,
To allow
like
AIs, for instance, to open a bank account or manage a company by themselves. I mean,
Now we're
previously
going to ban
when
all-
corporations
not all
were
aliens.
recognized
That
as
alien is now
persons,
telling us
this was
that
legal
there's gonna be a
fiction
new influx of
because all
aliens,
the
and we
decisions
need
of the
to treat
corporation
them
were
as
ultimately
not
made by some human being. Microsoft
We
is a
need to treat them
person,
as-
according to US law, but every decision Microsoft makes to buy another company, to fire somebody, to hire somebody, there is a human being who really makes this decision. There is no Microsoft who makes the decision. With AI,
And
for
a
the
lot of
first time in
resources went
history,
into it.
we have a practical potential for companies without humans. That you can have millions, even billions of AIs opening their own companies, their own bank accounts, even hiring people
Like
to
this
work
is
for them,
true on the
deciding
legislative
on their
aspect.
investment strategy and whatever.
It's
And they
because
will
you're
have
not actually
huge
verifying that
advantages
there's a human,
uh,
right?
over
because we've
human
been doing all
companies.
this
For instance, the
fake
AI
bullshit in the
CEO
first place
never
in
sleeps.
the line of giving
The
corporations.
AI CEO
instead of
never goes on vacation.
Putting up more regulations. Remove
And
the
some
regulation that
countries,
makes
I can imagine, say a
corporations
country like
people so that
Qatar,
we can
which has a lot
stop
of money,
this
a lot of energy,
deregulation
and very few citizens, saying, oh, wonderful, I can now have millions of AI citizens paying taxes and building companies that
They're gonna be
trade and do business
taxpayers
all over
that
the
don't
world.
complain and don't
So even
need
if your
rent, and then
country
you can
doesn't
rent out
allow
fake land,
AIs
this new
to,
NFT
to build
this
their own
AI
companies,
person,
what do you
and
do
be-
about the Qatari AI
They've got to see
companies?
it that it's all
And
right?
the moment you recognize AIs as legal persons, this is the moment you really lose control. Because then they can start doing a lot of things in the economic and social and political arena without any human accountability. Including, for instance, to donate money to politicians in exchange for the politicians taking care of giving more rights to AI persons.
I think that's very, very interesting. I guess one question about whether you call it personhood or not. One of the ways and reasons we think about corporations as persons, which is linguistically like a weird thing, is actually to create accountability. To say that the corporation is accountable for what it does. And one of the
they're
fights
people,
around
not the
questions of
people
AI
are responsible.
is a
for
question of liability. And who is responsible for what the AI does. So you could say, okay, if you treat them, again, person, something else, you could say AIs in this world like have some kind of liability for what they do, can be shut down, can be penalized and funded. There's another question, maybe the companies that create them should have the liability. Maybe the people ordering them should have the liability, but accountability, I think, is downstream actually of liability. And deciding who is punished, who is accountable for the, if that Qatari AI company you're talking about, or one of them, one instance of it, defrauds their customers or brings in investment and embezzles it, who do you sue?
Yeah, and the companies that produce the AIs have a vested interest in not having any liability. So they are pushing very, very hard for AI personhood. Now, they don't want a bill in Congress saying, we recognize AIs as persons because there will be a huge public outcry and resistance. They try to establish facts on the ground. They already succeeded, for instance, in social media. In the universe of social media, AIs are already
fucking money.
Like
AI's
if you
not
have
spending
bots
the money
creating
for
and
its own
spreading
enjoyment,
lies
right?
on social media, effectively there is almost no liability. On social media, AIs already function, they are functionally persons. You communicate with someone online, you think it's a person, no, it's an AI. And nobody is liable for that. Many of the companies would like to extend this situation to the financial system, to the political system, because it releases them of accountability and liability. We need to be proactive and have a law that clearly states no AI persons. And I imagine there would be bipartisan support for that law. And it will put the companies in a very hard spot, because if they would try to lobby against the law, they will have to explain to the public, why do you think it's a good idea that AI will be persons? And if you don't think that, why do you oppose the law?
Let me ask you about one other dimension of this here, which brings us, I think, in some ways full circle, which is the role AI is going to have on the stories we tell and the stories we believe. So we talked about the way social media and algorithmic media are technologies of fracture as opposed to technologies of cohesion. I don't even know what stories somebody is getting on their TikTok feed, even if I'm using TikTok sitting in the same home as them. Our ability to even see what we are disagreeing about, to know the sources of those disagreements is weaker maybe than it has been at any other time. There's been a lot of discussion and some research on the way that AI so far
you're just jealous
seems to be
because
something
they're
of centralizing technology. The different models tend to converge around similar answers. They are trained on similar corpuses of data. They all seem to be actually somewhat liberal in the sort of philosophical sense that we were describing it earlier. And you see this on X when people are asking Grok, which is not my favorite AI, to fact check things.
I like Claude.
That their ability to help people correct information. You were saying earlier that we've gone from trusting people to trusting algorithms.
Yeah.
The algorithms we trust are very impersonal and faceless right now. We don't have a relationship to them. But you're watching people move to trusting AI algorithms, and maybe that's better than what they've been doing. Maybe that is more likely in most cases to give people a reasonable answer for a question than searching it on Google or YouTube. Is there some possibility, and would it be good or bad if there's a possibility that AI is a homogenizing technology, is a technology that sort of pulls people back towards not a single set of answers, because different people's AIs respond to them differently, but generalized in a way towards consensus answers, which every AI model we know of seems to prefer when it is done training.
I think that there is a chance, though it's not a certainty, but there is a chance because in the training of AI, there is a very high cost to disregarding truth. So maybe to take a concrete example, let's say that
Yeah,
you
so
are
obviously it goes
you're
instant
Russian,
hallucination mode. It's
and
like,
you're
wait, we're
trying
doing
to develop
imagination
your
play. It's
own
because
Russian AI,
See,
and you
there's
give
a
it
lot of things behind
access
the
to
scenes that
enormous amount of data and information, otherwise you can't train your AI. But you want your AI, when somebody asks in Russia or outside Russia, is Russia a democracy? Is there freedom of speech in Russia? You want the AI to say, yes, of course. Russian constitution guarantees freedom of speech, and Russia is a democracy. But of course, this will mean that you need to explain to the AI why it needs to lie. And how do you train an AI to lie only in certain cases and not in all cases? That's a very difficult engineering
Is it supposed to be able to
challenge,
learn as a
which
nine? Oh
people
my
did not
God.
have with the social media algorithms.
And there's good
It's not
evidence that when you
possible.
do it, it degrades the overall performance of the AI, which I found to be a very fascinating thing. People have tried to do this, and it creates very strange downstream consequences, like when Elon Musk seemed to give a directive to XAI to make the AI less woke, and all of a sudden it was talking about white genocide everywhere. It's not easy to turn the dial ideologically and just get a pinpoint outcome of that.
Exactly. Like if you tell the AI, like you don't want, I don't know, you are the government of Uganda, and you think that there are no gay people in Uganda, all the gay people in Uganda, they are brainwashed by Western propaganda. And you want the AI to give this answer, the AI will need to ignore a lot of scientific research on human sexuality and on what causes people to have this or that sexual orientation. Now, how do you explain to the AI that you need to ignore articles appearing in scientific literature in this case, but you can trust them in other cases? It's a very difficult engineering problem. And if this is the top priority of the regime, like you are Saudi Arabia, and you have billions and billions of dollars, and you want to make sure that the AI will not criticize MBS, you can do that, if that's your top priority. But you can do that only with a few cases. If you try to do it with too many things, you will get a very crappy AI.
So does this on some level make you optimistic? Because something I've seen you say in different pieces and interviews is that the most important thing is for countries, societies, institutions to have mechanisms of self-correction.
Mm-hmm.
And often the way we build mechanisms of self-correction is not to rely on individual humans being able to aggregate information at that speed, but we have things that are vast, impersonal, not even fully understood, like markets, where prices flow through very quickly. And it's not that a market cannot fail, it fails all the time. But as a mechanism of self-correction, it is able to move information through very, very rapidly, and it's quite good. And one way in which I think modernity has been somewhat troubled is that it is much more complex than most of our mechanisms of self-correction can keep up with. There's more information than humans and institutions can absorb. Arguably, AIs in this telling